Pokémon, the strongest trainer. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction, so please don't attempt real magic. The results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 225 Lu, professional in sheep pulling, Feng. An hour later, Jilroda presented the newly captured Articuno to Satoshi and the others, smiling with a hint of pride. Look! What have I brought you? As he finished speaking, another figure appeared in the hall where the collection was stored. Articuno, also defenseless, was suppressed by the ring of confinement and teleported by the hovercraft's artificial intelligence to a nearby location, alongside Moltres and Zapdos. As Satoshi and the others watched the three mythical birds, their pupils constricted slightly, their expressions filled with horror. Damn it! Even Articuno fell victim to your cruelty. Satoshi glared at Jilroda, his eyes bloodshot and filled with resentment. Seeing the expression on Zayazi's face, Jilroda curled his lips at him, saying with some displeasure, "This is a great act of collecting. You wouldn't understand at your age? Don't you think the three mythical birds, arranged in a row, are filled with an indescribable beauty?" After spending a moment with Flora and the others, Jilroda left again, preparing to embark on his next plan. The gods of ice, fire, and thunder have all been captured. Next is Lugia, the god of the sea, Jilroda said, his face flushed with anticipation as he gazed at the virtual screen before him. Mr. Jilroda, our surface surveys have revealed an extremely powerful force deep in the ocean, seemingly about to resurrect. An assistant, holding a notebook, approached Jilroda and reported respectfully. Excellent. Keep an eye on the sea surface and wait for Lugia, the god of the sea, to appear. Jilroda's breathing quickened upon hearing his assistant's words, his entire body in a state of extreme excitement. He had never felt so good as he did today. Jilroda knew that if he just waited a little longer, his dream would come true, to acquire Loki, the god of the sea, and become the world's greatest collector. As Jilroda envisioned his impending achievement, he heard the sound of gentle footsteps behind him. He frowned slightly, turned his chair, and looked behind him. Mr. Jilroda, I have to remind you, according to our agreement, it's time to deliver the agreed-upon items. Lance, looking at Jilroda in his chair, gently reminded him with a carefree smile. Jilroda fell silent for a moment, then slowly relaxed his frown and nodded to Lance. The three mythical bird feathers you need are down below. Feel free to take them. Just don't damage my collection. Lance's smile lifted. After congratulating Jilroda, he quickly walked towards the hall where the three mythical birds were displayed, accompanied by a few of Team Rocket's men. When they arrived at the hall where Ash and the others were, they looked upon the people imprisoned in cylindrical iron cages, their faces filled with astonishment, their daze lasting a moment. After a long pause, Lance finally came to his senses, staring at Ash and the others with a strange look. Lance could understand Jilroda's capture of Flora and Misty, but the idea of capturing Ash and Jian as well was beyond his comprehension. A thought struck Lance, and goosebumps broke out. He gazed with a chill above him, his body trembling. After several seconds, Lance struggled to shift his gaze to the three legendary birds, his breathing becoming rapid. While they coveted the three legendary birds, considering their inherent strength, Lance forgoed the allure of the three legendary birds and simply stepped forward to pluck their feathers. After obtaining the legendary feathers from Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno, Lance and his men quickly departed Jilroda's ship, landing on a nearby island without looking back. Team Rocket, Ash and Misty watched Lance and his men depart, their brows furrowed in worry. Sometime later, as Ash and his companions grimaced, something unexpected happened. Boom! A massive explosion echoed, and a massive hole tore through the wall not far from them, sending a piercing cold wind through the opening. Ash and his companions, lightly clothed, shivered at the biting chill and unconsciously huddled together. "What's going on?" Furla muttered, gazing at the hole. "Looks like I've arrived just in time." Upon hearing the familiar voice, Ash and Misty paused for a moment, then excitedly shouted, "Lu Feng! Come in, we're here." Furla and Zyojin listened with bewildered eyes, but they knew clearly that reinforcements had arrived. A minute later, Lu Feng, accompanied by Garcombe, flew in through the hole in the hall wall. He glanced around curiously, and upon seeing Ash and the others, as well as the 3 nearby mythical birds, he became a little surprised. According to the plot, Articuno shouldn't have fallen into Gelroda's hands, and Ash and the others should have escaped by now. After a moment's reflection, he had no clue, and could only chalk it up to the butterfly effect of the real world. Then, Feng pointed at the cage holding Ash and the others and said to Garchomp, "Gargoyle, you split. Be careful not to hurt Ash and the others." Crack! Garchomp roared, raised his right arm, and using its sharp wings, slammed the nearby cage hard. Instantly, the cage holding Ash and the others, unable to withstand Garchomp's attack, began to shatter. Seeing the cage shatter, everyone rushed out. "Huh? Freed from the cage?" Ash looked at Feng with gratitude and said sincerely, "Feng, thank you so much for this time. Otherwise, we really don't know what to do." Feng gently shook his head, reassuring Ash that he didn't need to be so, and smiled calmly. Then, noticing the 3 legendary birds nearby, Ash quickly dispatched several of his Pokémon to help them break free from their cage. Feng glanced at the 3 mythical birds. Seeing their eyes tightly shut, a sly glint flickered in the corner of his eye, and he quickly stopped Xiaozi and the others. Xiaozi and the others glanced at him, bewildered and puzzled. "Please be patient." "Wait a minute," Feng said simply without further explanation, then quickly walked over to the 3 mythical birds. Amidst the incredulous gazes, he plucked a feather from each of the birds and calmly put it away. "These 3 feathers are my reward for saving them. I've always been the one taking advantage of others. How can I let the 3 mythical birds take advantage of my help for free?" Feng thought to himself, a smile playing on his face. Xiaozi stared at the scene in a daze, recalling Team Rocket's actions just now, and suddenly froze in his tracks. "Ah! This..." Xiaoxia looked at Feng awkwardly, seeming to want to say something, but ultimately, she kept it to herself. After all, it was a favor for Feng to save them, and it was sophistication for them not to hinder Feng from doing things. These 2 together are the sophistication of the world. If the outlaw Zhang San were here, seeing this scene of men being silent and women crying, he would have to say, "Wow," in an instant. Everyone was silent, and the entire spaceship hall was silent. Only the shadow behind Feng shook a little helplessly after seeing his plucking behavior. Regarding the wool-pulling behavior of this year's Rainbow Brave, Machado just felt a little tired, with a complicated expression. It suddenly discovered that it seemed that among all the legendary Pokémon it had encountered, there was no wool that Feng could not pull. At this moment, Machado only wanted to say, "You are worthy of being you. Wool-pulling professional, Feng." Chapter 226, I will protect the Orange Islands. Having obtained what he desired, Feng nodded with satisfaction. He turned his gaze to Garchomp and softly commanded it, "Gargoyle, Dragon Claw, Ka-ao." Garchomp erupted with a powerful aura, raising his head and roaring loudly. He gently raised his right hand, and slashed forward with his sharp white toe. The next moment, influenced by dragon energy, the sharp white toe transformed into a piercing claw, slashing hard at the iron cage holding Moltres. Dragon Claw. Clang. With the sound of a heavy object dropping, Garchomp easily slashed through the iron ring holding Moltres. Moltres, eyes tightly closed, felt the force suppressing it disappear. It suddenly opened its eyes, let out a high-pitched cry, and broke free from the iron ring. Its sharp claws stomped onto the ground, inadvertently leaving several deep scratches. With an expression of immense anger on its face, it launched a sudden attack towards Zapdos. It seemed to be seeking revenge for Zapdos's invasion of its territory. Moltres sensed the presence of its own territory from Zapdos's body, sending it into rage. Moltres flapped its wings, its massive orange feathers ablaze brightly. Scorching flames swirled along Moltres' long, brown beak, forming a vortex that swept towards Zapdos. A vortex of flame. Had Satoshi and the others not dodged in time, this blazing attack would have undoubtedly caught them. Flora, Misty, and the others sighed silently, looking at Zapdos with complicated eyes. This wasn't the first time they'd been harmed by the unfortunate Zapdos, leaving them speechless for a moment. As the intense flames descended, the cage encasing Zapdos shattered. Zapdos, sensing the scorching heat, unleashed a surge of electrical energy, confronting the searing flames. Flames crackled. Lightning hissed. Seizing the moment when crimson flames and blue lightning collided, Zapdos flapped its wings and soared from the center of the energy clash, attacking Moltres nearby. Lu Feng glanced at Zapdos and Moltres, shook his head slightly, and directed Garchomp to continue breaking open Articuno's cage. Using its sharp claws, Garchomp easily tore through the cage. Articuno suddenly opened its eyes, let out a resounding cry, and flapped its icy blue wings before flying out. As Articuno flew free, it unleashed an icy blue beam of light, brimming with a chilling chill, towards the battling Moltres and Zapdos. Freeze beam. Upon witnessing the incoming icy beams, Moltres and Zapdos, engaged in a battle, halted their attacks and unleashed their respective abilities, firing at the brilliant, cold, icy blue light. Flame jets. Volts. For a moment, the entire hull of the hovercraft was ablaze with icy energy, ice, fire, and lightning, colliding in a dazzling brilliance. Lu Feng gazed upon the chaotic battle between the three mythical birds, his lips curling slightly in a mocking expression as he watched the three clashing birds engage. As he and his companions continuously dodged the energy attacks raining down from mid-air, gazing fearfully at the clash of the three mythical birds, seemingly at a loss as to what to do. Boom! Boom! Several terrifying explosions echoed, and the surrounding walls suddenly cracked, forming holes of varying sizes. Pieces of shattered stone plummeted from the sky to the ground, a chilling sight. Upon noticing the shattering walls around them, Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno, in a rare moment of dissent, paused their attacks. Recalling the humiliation they had suffered, they flew out in the direction of the cave entrance. They flapped their wings, circling the hovercraft, unleashing a continuous barrage of powerful attacks. The next moment, the hovercraft's propellers, struck by the three birds' attacks, shattered and exploded, severely damaging the entire hovercraft. Gerudo sat at the controls, his face grim, watching the three birds escape their bonds. He angrily pounded the controls and launched new binding rings, attempting to recapture them. However, the three birds were already prepared for the rings, and they used various energy attacks to knock them down, leaving Gerudo no chance. After several dozen seconds, the hovercraft finally collapsed under the fierce attack of the three birds, its instrument panels partially malfunctioning, and it began to plummet rapidly from its high altitude. Despite Joe's efforts to stabilize the ship, they proved futile under the furious attacks of the three mythical birds. Lu Feng and the others, still in the hovercraft's lobby, felt the weightlessness of their bodies, their expressions suddenly changing. This ship is going to crash. Get out of here, Lu Feng turned and shouted to Satoshi and the others. He wrapped one arm around Garchomp, approached them, and with one hand, grabbed Flora, then flew out. At Lu Feng's warning, Satoshi and the others suddenly realized what was happening. They quickly released Charizard and left the hovercraft's range. Shortly after they left, the hovercraft crashed heavily into a cliff on the ice island, carrying a tremendous force that cracked the nearby ice and swept a powerful, icy air current that spread in all directions. Suddenly, the vision of an avalanche appeared before Lu Feng and the others, the shocking impact leaving them with a lingering fear. Seeing everyone safe, Lu Feng couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He gestured for Garchomp to land on a nearby flat surface. Are you all alright? Lu Feng's clear eyes swept over the group, filled with concern. Everyone shook their heads slightly, indicating they were fine. Chirp! At that moment, three distinct chirps echoed from above, instantly drawing everyone's attention and directing all their gazes to the sky above. The three divine birds, seeing the hovercraft that had attacked them destroyed by its attack, engaged each other once again, venting their rage. In an instant, countless flames, lightning, and icy lights shot down from the sky, inflicting indelible damage and leaving the ground devastated. What should we do? The fury of the three gods of ice, fire, and thunder has been ignited by the attack. Furula gazed at the three divine birds clashing fiercely in the sky, a look of panic and worry on her face. If this continues, the legend will become reality, and the world will be destroyed by the wrath of the gods. After hearing Furula's words, everyone fell silent, their faces becoming solemn. Lu Feng sighed softly, his expression changing inexplicably. After a moment's silence, he suddenly made a decision. As the rainbow hero of the Phoenix King, he should tirelessly strive for harmonious coexistence between humans and Pokémon. He should protect the Orange Islands. Chapter 227 You protect the world, I protect you. The sky and earth lost their color, and a heavy snowstorm blanketed the air. Ash and the others, upon hearing Furula's words, expressed anxiety and hurriedly asked, Furula, is there no way to stop this? In the legend of the Orange Islands, how is the wrath of the three gods appeased? Furila's brows furrowed slightly as she silently recalled the legend. After a moment, she raised her head, a hint of joy flickering between her brows. She excitedly addressed Ash and the others. Legend has it that the temples on the 3 islands of ice, fire, and thunder hold 3 different treasures. If we can bring the treasures to the temple on Asia Island and play the Lugia song, we can appease the god's wrath and restore everything to normal. Alright. Our next goal is to reach the 3 islands and retrieve the 3 special treasures. Ash raised his right fist, confidently gazing at the ice island beneath him, and the nearby fire and thunder islands. But how are we supposed to retrieve those 3 treasures? Misty's beautiful eyes shone with worry as she watched the energy attacks raining down from the sky with lingering fear. The 3 mythical birds are constantly fighting in the skies above. Can we really go out like this? Upon hearing this, Ash and Gian instinctively glance up at the sky, sensing the terrifying aura emanating from them. They said dejectedly, "That's true." They still remembered what they had just experienced in the spaceship's lobby, and a hint of fear inevitably lingered in their eyes. Ash stood there, watching the worsening weather. He suddenly raised his head, tilted his hat back, and with determination, he ran towards the Ice Island temple without looking back. "Wait here, I'll go retrieve the 3 treasures," Pikachu called softly after Ash, chasing after him and following closely behind. Ash, Flora and Gian watched the receding figure, slightly lost in thought, unable to resist a soft cry. "This is too much." Misty looked at Ozzy as he left with some impatience. She felt a surge of anger for no reason at his risky behavior and felt a little tired. After a pause, Ozzy seemed to sense his conviction and shook her head slightly, saying secretly in her heart, "Although it's a bit reckless and makes people feel helpless, this is the most real Ozzy. This is the Ozzy that I have always been with." Thinking of this, Ozzy glanced at Zyogene and Furila, and hurriedly chased in the direction Ozzy left. Zyogene and Furila were stunned by the sight and froze in place, not knowing what to say. Feng gazed indifferently in the direction where Ozzy left. His eyes gradually became profound. He took a deep breath and said to Zyogene and Furila beside him, "You go and help Ozzy and the others. Leave this to me." Upon hearing this, Furila and Zyogene turned their heads to meet Feng's eyes. Seeing the firmness, purity and clarity in his eyes, they nodded heavily at him and said very seriously, "Mr. Feng, I'll leave this to you." After they finished speaking, they ran towards Ozzy and the others without looking back. Feng chuckled softly, his heart surging with emotion. He whispered to himself, "You protect the world, I'll protect you." He rummaged through his special backpack for a moment and pulled out a bell-shaped object. With a sharp gaze directed toward the sky, he said meaningfully, "Since it's Lugia's explosion, it's only right that the protagonist appears. Summoning Lugia makes perfect sense." Immediately, Feng channeled his wave power into the ocean bell, causing the bell, emanating a tranquil and peaceful aura, to vibrate automatically without wind. As the ocean bell rang, crisp chimes echoed between heaven and earth. Driven by some special force, they instantly spread across the entire ice island, spreading in all directions. Deep in the ocean, within the ocean floor's currents. A massive, slumbering figure suddenly heard the sound of a bell. Sensing the familiar aura and power emanating from the same source, it immediately opened its tightly closed eyes and uttered a low hum. This figure was, of course, Lugia, dormant on Asia Island, the only Lugia to be crowned a god. Sensing the shift in the ocean currents, it couldn't help but frown. Lugia flapped its wide wings, stirring up a massive waterspout from the depths of the sea, rapidly moving toward the surface. Its destination was where Feng was. Lugia was momentarily stunned by the sudden shift in the world. It remembered only dozing off for a moment. How could the world have suddenly changed? The ocean currents in the deep sea had become turbulent. Therefore, it wanted to assess the situation before making any further plans. Feng surveyed the frozen sea, quietly awaiting Lugia's arrival, his expression filled with solemnity. About 5 minutes after ringing the ocean bell, Feng sensed a terrifying presence beneath the vast ice, rapidly approaching his position. "Is it coming?" Feng asked expectantly, his eyes fixed on the surrounding ice. Suddenly, as if remembering something, he quickly tossed out Gardevoir's Pokeball and pointed it at the severely damaged hovercraft not far away, whispering instructions. Gardevoir nodded at Feng, used teleport, and vanished from his sight. Shortly after, Gardevoir, following Feng's instructions, brought back the incapacitated Gerudo. Mr. Geruda, nice to meet you. Forgive me for my rude invitation, but to prevent you from acting insanely, I have no choice but to do this." Lu Feng stared at Geruda, his face rimmed with an unbreakable frost, and spoke indifferently. In the original story, though Geruda's ship was damaged, it was still able to cast the binding ring. After Lugia's appearance, Geruda hadn't given up on capturing Lugia. To prevent this from happening, Lu Feng had Gardevoir bring him here ahead of time. Geruda stared at Lu Feng in bewilderment, somewhat confused about what he meant. However, the situation was stronger than him, so Geruda said nothing and obediently cooperated with Lu Feng. At this moment, the frozen sea suddenly broke apart, and an immense waterspout, breaking through the ice and pouring up from the depths of the sea into the sky. A gigantic bird-like figure emerged from the waterspout. With a gentle flap of its wings, the previously turbulent sea began to calm, restored to tranquility by its power. With a high-pitched sound, the swirling waterspout shattered, revealing the hidden bird figure clearly before Lu Feng and Geruda. "Lugia, the god of the sea," Geruda muttered to himself, fascinated by Lugia's figure. At this moment, Lugia, the god of the sea, appeared. Chapter 228 Lu Feng, Lugia, the god of the sea, is really a bit disappointing. Lugia appeared above the frozen sea, flapping its pure white wings. A heavy, oppressive presence emanated from it, and its voice was high and clear. He first looked up at the three mythical birds in the sky, a look of deep confusion on his face. He wondered what had transpired between them that had them so energetically engaged in a brawl. Perhaps they have too little work to vent their energy, he thought. Lugia was silent for a moment, then shifted his gaze to the ground. He seemed to notice the fiery glow in Geruda's eyes, but he didn't take it too seriously. Over his long life, Lugia had grown accustomed to such human gazes, numb to them. Then, sensing the location of the bell that summoned him, Lugia's gaze focused on Lu Feng. As he continued to survey him, Lugia's expression shifted, and he couldn't help but stare deeply at Lu Feng. From Lu Feng, Lugia sensed the power fluctuations of his own clan, the aura left by Hoenn, and even the energy fluctuations of a high legendary of his own rank. Although Lugia's strength had been severely weakened after maintaining the stability of the ocean current, and he did not recognize the high legendary Pokémon on Lu Feng's body, he was unmistakable in its overwhelming presence. After pondering silently for a moment, Lugia uttered a deep voice and asked Lu Feng, "Hero of Hoenn, are you summoning me?" Lu Feng nodded gently, pointed at the three mythical birds in the sky, and said to Lugia, "Lugia, the three mythical birds have fallen into rage again. Please stop them." Lugia frowned slightly at this, unable to resist asking his question. "Hero of the Phoenix King, what is going on? Why are the three gods of ice, fire, and thunder stationed on the three islands in such a state of rage? Shouldn't this be the time for them to enter a deep slumber and recover their strength?" Lu Feng sighed, glancing at Geruda, who was slumped on the ground, and slowly began to explain to Lugia. Lugia listened quietly to Lu Feng's explanation, then glanced at Geruda with an extremely dignified look and fell silent. After a long pause, Lugia spoke softly, his expression extremely complicated. "I can't believe that after all these years, humans still haven't given up their desires and are still trying to covet the gods. Isn't the lesson of 150 years ago enough?" Hearing Lugia's commanding voice, Geruda's lips moved slightly, trying to make a defense, but he felt a heavy pressure on his body and ultimately kept his words still. Lu Feng glanced at Lugia with some surprise, his heart sinking. He knew full well that the lesson the sea god was referring to from 150 years ago was the burn tower incident in Yuju City. It seems this Lugia before me is related to the Lugia mother and son from the Whirlpool Islands, Lu Feng thought to himself. When he had seen the Lugia from the Whirlpool Islands, he had known that Lugia was the one enshrined in the bell tower. Hearing the sea god's example now, Lu Feng couldn't help but ponder. Perhaps I can leverage the Lugia mother and son's relationship to get more out of the sea god. Lu Feng rested his chin, lost in thought. Suddenly, Lugia sensed a chill from Lu Feng. Curious, he turned his head and said in a strange tone, "Hero of the Phoenix King, you seem to be thinking of something impolite." Lugia's words interrupted his thoughts, causing him to smile awkwardly but politely and touch his nose nervously. Then, to ease the awkward atmosphere, Lu Feng pointed at the three mythical birds in the sky and quickly said, "Lugia, let's stop them first." Lugia raised its head and howled, then nodded at Lu Feng. It leaned down, motioning for Lu Feng to ride on its back. Naturally, Lu Feng wouldn't refuse. He wanted to experience the feeling of riding Lugia. However, before leaving, Lu Feng earnestly instructed Gardevoir, keep an eye on our Mr. Gilroda. Don't let him out of your sight, Gardevoir nodded, responding with a low hum. Seeing that Lu Feng had made arrangements, Lugia quickly flapped its wide wings, creating a powerful blast that gradually dissipated the falling snow. The next moment, Lu Feng, his hands firmly grasping Lugia's back feathers, approached the three mythical birds with him. Seeing the energy released by the three mythical birds about to fall on Ash and the others on the ground, Lu Feng hurriedly called to Lugia, 9 o'clock, cyclone attack. Lugia glanced at Ash and the others on the ground, sensing the aura of the ice treasure, and instantly realized what was going on. He rapidly flapped his wings, and a terrifying wave of energy erupted from his body, unleashing a powerful vortex of air towards the energy attack that was about to fall on Ash and the others. Cyclone attack. Note, cyclone attack is also known as aerial blast, sky impact wave, vacuum blast, etc., and is Lugia's unique skill, but the names vary slightly due to different translations. Boom! With the sound of an explosion, the spurting energy attack was successfully blocked by Lugia's unique skill, cyclone attack. We're saved, Ash, Jian, and the others breathed a sigh of relief after seeing their attack blocked, their expressions still shrouded in shock. What's going on? Who saved us just now? Misty asked, puzzled, noticing no one had come. Flora stared blankly at the sky, then, upon seeing the large white bird suddenly appear, said in a trembling voice, "Look! The god of the sea has appeared. There's someone on his back." She hadn't expected to see Lugia, their beloved deity, in such a state of mind. She became dazed, unable to recover for a moment. Ash and the others followed Flora's gaze and, upon seeing the figure on Lugia's back, couldn't help but click their tongues. Is that Lu Feng on Lugia's back? A momentary silence fell over them, as they took in the scene before them. Once they realized what was happening, they exchanged glances and continued their journey towards the other two islands, hoping to reclaim the remaining two treasures while Lu Feng and Lugia bought them time. Standing on Lugia's back, Lu Feng watched Xiaozi and the others' actions and nodded. He then directed Lugia to attack the three mythical birds. A powerful light emanated from Lugia's body, and its wings fluttered rapidly. It flapped its pure white wings and launched a direct attack at the three fighting mythical birds. Mythical bird smash. In an instant, the mythical bird smash slammed hard into Moltres, causing it to cry out in pain and glare at Lugia. At this moment, enraged Zapdos and Articuno also turned to look at this uninvited Lugia. Their auras became extremely violent, their eyes glowing crimson. The three mythical birds seemed to sense a serious threat from Lugia, and expressions of deep fear appeared on their faces. In a second, they united in tacit coordination and attacked Lugia. 100,000 volts. Exploding flames. Blizzard. Three different energy attacks descended upon Lugia at astonishing speed. Facing the onslaught, Lugia roared softly and retaliated with a beam of destruction. Seeing the attacks from the three mythical birds, Lu Feng felt a sense of unease. He flung out Charizard's Pokeball and, taking advantage of the clash, leaped onto Charizard, directing it to avoid the fray. Shortly after he left, the beam of destruction struck the three mythical birds, but their attack also struck Lugia. In this round of clash, both sides suffered varying injuries and cried out in pain. Lu Feng stared at the scene in astonishment, speechless as he looked at the injured Lugia, his eyes twitching constantly. That's it? This is Lugia, the god of the sea? That's truly lame. You're probably a fake, aren't you? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 229 Lugia, you should quit the group. This is a bit outrageous. Lugia, the sea god and lord of the gods, was actually defeated by an underdog. Lu Feng was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help but grumble. The relationship between Lugia and the three legendary birds of the Orange Islands is similar to that between Ho-Oh and the first three sacred beasts. Their rebellions could be pacified and suppressed through power. But what did Lu Feng witness? Lugia, the sea god, was no match for the combined might of the three legendary birds, wounded by their combined attack. As Lugia fell, the thunderstorm between heaven and earth intensified, the sweeping blizzard intensified, and countless scorching flames scattered across the earth, akin to a celestial conflagration. Curious, Lu Feng looked towards his own shadow and asked, "Machado, are you capable of such a feat?" At Lu Feng's question, his shadow trembled, revealing a small figure. Machado stared at Lu Feng intently, its orange-red eyes flickering slightly. It felt as if Lu Feng's words were hinting at it, and it fell silent. After a moment, sensing the growing intensity of Lu Feng's gaze, Machado shook his head and replied in a deep voice, "The three mythical birds were able to injure Lugia because they possess three divine offices bestowed by nature. Their current strength is comparable to that of a high legend, although Lugia, blessed by his divine office, far surpasses that of a typical high legend. He is currently at a low point, seemingly yet to recover." Lu Feng suddenly understood Machado's explanation, and nodded slightly as he gazed at Lugia in the distance. He had initially assumed Lugia was failing, but it turned out to be due to maintaining the stability of the ocean currents and not yet recovering his strength. As the deity specifically responsible for controlling the great ocean currents, the pressure Lugia endured was undoubtedly greater than that of the three gods of ice, fire, and thunder. Watching Lugia struggling in the sky against the three legendary birds, the situation becoming tense, Lu Feng shook his head slightly, sighed silently, and removed the master ball dangling from his neck. He said helplessly, "After all, it's up to us to save the Orange Islands." But before Lu Feng could act, the sudden sound of propellers whirring in the sky caught his attention. He looked up in the direction of the sound and was stunned. He saw a helicopter with a Golden City TV station logo, braving the strong blizzard and the cold wind, approaching the center of the battle. At the same time, many trainers, like the helicopter, with the fearless spirit of war reporter Chu Lali, were fearlessly approaching Lugia and the three legendary birds. At this time, on the helicopter that was constantly going deeper into the dangerous area, a young reporter was standing in the biting cold wind, shivering as she pointed at the screen outside the helicopter and said in a trembling voice, "I am Cherry, a foreign correspondent for Kanto Golden TV. At present, the climate around the world is changing drastically. Countless wild Pokémon are spontaneously approaching the direction of Asia Island. Even those Pokémon that cannot cross the ocean have come to the position closest to Asia Island. In order to understand the truth, we have come to the vicinity of Asia Island. Moreover, we have also invited the famous scholars Professor Oak and Professor Uchiki. Now let us ask them for their views on this incident." After the female reporter finished speaking, she motioned the camera to turn to Professor Oak and asked him, "Professor Oak, what do you think of this unusual change?" Upon hearing this, Professor Oak pondered for a while, took out a notebook, and wrote and drew to explain the relationship between the three legendary birds and the intrinsic connection between this change. Professor Oak also provided additional information, offering his perspective on the migration of wild Pokémon, clarifying the stakes. Suddenly, the female reporter named Cherry let out a cry of surprise, instantly capturing everyone's attention. "Oh my God! What's going on?" Everyone in the helicopter quickly rushed to her side, looking in the direction she pointed. A shocking scene unfolded before them. In the sky not far away, the three mythical birds launched a coordinated attack on Lugia, unleashing a continuous barrage of thunder, hail, and fire. Lugia unleashed its own power, unleashing a terrifying surge of might, counterattacking the three. Instantly, countless energy attacks plummeted to the ground, causing the frozen sea to suddenly shatter. "This is Lugia, the god of the sea, and the three mythical birds of ice, fire, and thunder near Asia Island," Professor Oak observed for a moment before carefully explaining the situation to the crowd. "Lugia should be, as the legend says, calming the wrath of the gods of ice, fire, and thunder and restoring the Orange Islands to their original state. I never thought I'd see Lugia and the three mythical birds in person in my lifetime," Professor Oak said with deep emotion, gazing into the camera. After a moment, Professor Uchiki seemed to notice something, frowning and saying, "It's just that there's something off about Lugia, the god of the sea. Why does he seem to be being outmatched by the three mythical birds?" Everyone was stunned for a moment after hearing Professor Uchiki's words, observing the situation carefully. They exchanged bewildered glances, and a moment of silence fell. The scene seemed to be exactly as Professor Uchiki had described. Lugia looked troubled, seemingly unable to hold his own against a combined attack of the three mythical birds. Weakened by the attack, Lugia wailed mournfully, battered and bruised by the attacks, struggling to hold his own. Everyone watched this scene with a wrenching heart, but there was nothing they could do. "Professor Oak, is there no way to help Lugia?" Professor Oak sighed, shook his head, and said to the female reporter Cherry, "This is a battle between gods. Ordinary Pokémon can't intervene. To change this situation, another god must intervene. Wait, there seems to be something new, Professor Oak replied with a headache. Before he could finish his words, a casual glance caught his eye and he quickly changed the subject. Everyone glanced at Professor Oak in confusion, then slowly turned to look at the center of the battle not far away. Their pupils constricted, their mouths opened slightly, and their expressions were filled with shock. At some point, a Pokémon with an extremely graceful, elegant, and holy figure appeared in the center of the battle between Lugia and the three legendary birds, spewing terrifying blue flames, burning the angry birds. This Pokémon was, of course, Feng's Reshiram. He first arrived at Articuno's side, unleashing a massive volcano of flames, interwoven with tiny arcs of electricity. This immense energy assault poured down upon Articuno. Intertwining flames. Instantly, Articuno, enveloped in the intertwining flames, its body ablaze with blazing flames, plummeted to the ice with a resounding thud. As Articuno vanished, Reshiram flapped his massive white wings and blasted a powerful dragon breath at Moltres nearby, forcibly interrupting its alliance with Zapdos. Instantly, the pressure on Lugia, already battered and wounded, suddenly vanished. He let out a soft cry toward Reshiram, expressing his profound gratitude for his assistance. Reshiram glanced at Lugia, a strange look in his eyes. If they weren't allies on the same side, Reshiram would have been unable to resist his criticism. Trashy Lugia, and this is how he calls himself the god of the sea? If you can't even control your own minions, what's the point of you? Lugia, you should find time to leave the High Legends group chat, too. Chapter 230, this wave is the duo ranking of Reshiram and Lugia. With Reshiram's appearance, the battle over the ice island shifted in an instant. With his help, Lugia, his frustrated demeanor gone, turned the tide. Reshiram, Dragon Wave, Feng commanded calmly, perched atop Reshiram, gazing at Moltres in the distance. Reshiram roared, his bright blue eyes gleaming. He took a deep breath and unleashed a powerful shockwave, imbued with dragon-like energy, that slammed into Moltres. Moltres, already fatigued, had no time to dodge Dragon Wave's attack and, in full view of everyone, was struck by Reshiram's attack. Boom! Moltres wailed, the fierceness in her eyes gradually fading, revealing an expression of immense pain as her body involuntarily plummeted towards the ice island. Seconds later, with a sound of ice shattering, Moltres' body was completely covered in ice and snow, vanishing from the battlefield. Feng noticed the ice below still trembling, knowing Moltres hadn't completely lost its combat capability. He continued to command Reshiram, Reshiram, Blue Flame. Instantly, Reshiram's body temperature rose rapidly, and a beautiful, brilliant blue flame condensed from his mouth, emitting a chilling aura. He launched it directly towards Moltres' position. It was like a firework rising in the night, quietly blooming a different color against the icy and snowy surroundings. Feng stared at the scene before him, slightly stunned, his thoughts drifting away. He rested his chin on his hand, lost in thought. If you're short of money in the future, you can ask Reshiram to take orders for fireworks celebrations. Feng's eyes sparkled, and a smile curled up his lips. The only thing that made Feng a little dissatisfied was that Reshiram couldn't learn the Dragon Star Cluster. Otherwise, he could have staged an incredibly spectacular Skyfire meteor fireworks display. The effect would have been absolutely devastating. A sudden chill flashed through Reshiram, and his body couldn't help but tremble for a moment. Reshiram then glanced in the direction of Lugia and Zapdos, uttering a low, ethereal voice, asking Feng what to do next. Feng glanced at the battlefield nearby, observing Lugia still disciplining his younger brother. He pointed to Articuno below and jokingly said, "Let Lugia handle Zapdos on his own. If Lugia can't even defeat a single Zapdos, it's no use in High Legend. Let's go and finish off the remaining Articuno." Reshiram's expression flashed with sympathy, deeply resonating with Feng's words. He quickly flapped his elegant, radiant white wings and swooped down towards Articuno. Articuno, already suffering from Reshiram's intertwined flames, struggled to free itself from the ice, its breath weakening. Just as it was about to take flight again, it heard a voice in its ear, causing its face to freeze. Articuno instinctively glanced upwards, only to see Reshiram, carrying Feng, descend before it and preparing his corresponding moves. Reshiram, Jet Flame. As Feng's voice trailed off, Reshiram's high-pitched cry unleashed a blazing burst of flames, sweeping towards Articuno on the ground. Burned by the intense heat, Articuno, already severely injured and weakened, finally succumbed and fell heavily to the ground, losing its last remaining fighting ability. Meanwhile, not long after Articuno collapsed, Lugia ended his battle with Zapdos. With a terrifying and powerful dragon dive, he stunned the aggressive Zapdos and sent it crashing onto the ice. At that moment, the three mythical birds lay in a neat formation on the ice island's surface. Lugia and Reshiram stood side by side, their massive white wings spread, hovering in the sky. This time, Reshiram and Lugia duo queued, successfully clearing the Tri-Bird dungeon. The scene was breathtakingly spectacular. Some distance away, in the helicopter, everyone watched in disbelief, their minds drifting slightly into trance. What kind of Pokémon is this? It's so beautiful, and so powerful, reporter Cherry, fascinated by Reshiram, blurted out unconsciously, her gaze fixed on him. Professor Oak and Professor Uchiki exchanged glances, catching each other's gazes and nodding slightly, as if reaching a consensus. After a moment's hesitation, Professor Oak's face gravely declared, "That must be the true dragon god of Unova, Reshiram." Reshiram? And Unova, the dazed people in the helicopter, snapped back to reality upon hearing Professor Oak's voice, and said, somewhat bewilderedly, "Reshiram's status in Unova is like that of Hoenn in Kanto and Johto, both are supremely noble and inviolable," Professor Oak quickly added, noticing the confusion on everyone's faces. Everyone gasped, a touch shocked. They hadn't expected the graceful white dragon, standing nearby, to possess such a powerful background. They were at a loss for words to describe their feelings. Reporter Cherry was silent for several minutes, then looked up, puzzled, and posed a crucial question. If Reshiram is a legend in Unova, why would he appear in the Orange Islands? Professor Oak's gaze drifted off, his voice serene. Because Reshiram, unlike Hoenn, seeks out the white hero, the true hero he recognizes, and follows and helps him fulfill his own vision of truth. Professor Oak's words resonated like thunder from the heavens, stirring a wave of deafening shock within the crowd. They were speechless for a long time, and the entire helicopter fell silent. From the information revealed in his words, everyone understood one thing. A true hero had appeared. Another legendary trainer had emerged among humans, one who commanded a high-level legend. Suddenly, everyone was in a frenzy, their breathing rapid, their faces flushed. They tried to maneuver the helicopter closer to Lugia and Reshiram, searching for the newly minted legendary trainer, but the howling blizzard inevitably caused the helicopter to sway and inevitably plummet towards Asia Island. Fortunately, Professor Oak's quick reaction, using his Dragon Knight to stabilize the helicopter's descent, prevented a tragic crash. Feng paid little attention to the fate of those on the helicopter. By then, he had already retrieved Reshiram, mounted Lugia, and headed towards Satoshi and the others. After searching for a while, Feng finally spotted Satoshi and the others on Fire Island. By then, they had obtained the 3 special treasures and were about to return to the temple on Asia Island. Before they could make a move, Lugia and Feng appeared before them. Lugia and Mr. Feng, Furla covered her mouth and exclaimed. Satoshi and Misty glanced at him in a daze, gradually hesitating to speak. Feng shook his head at the others and signaled with his eyes, "Don't just stand there, hurry up and get on board. The entire Orange Islands are waiting for the treasure in your hands to be restored to its original state." Upon hearing this, Satoshi and the others quickly climbed onto Lugia's back and rode on it with Feng. Returning to the Asia Island Temple. Chapter 231, The matter is over and gone. The sky was overcast, a blizzard of snow and strong winds raged, and the temperature and climate were inevitably out of whack. The conditions were becoming increasingly harsh, and the situation suddenly became dire. Lugia flapped its wings, suppressing the strong winds that swept around it. Leading Feng, Ozzy, and the others, it gradually arrived at the Asia Island Temple. In front of the Asia Island Temple, a figure with wise eyes, Slowking, waited. Seeing Lugia and Feng appear, it hurried to a nearby position. "Lugia-sama," Slowking said respectfully, looking up at Lugia. Lugia nodded, a warm expression on its face, signaling it to begin the ritual to restore all the changes to their original state. Understanding Lugia's intentions, Slowking glanced at Feng and the others, finally resting on Ozzy. Ozzy, puzzled by Slowking's gaze, gave an awkward smile. From Ozzy, it sensed the unique vibrations of the 3 treasures, and suddenly, enlightenment dawned on it. "Controller, please follow me." Slowking approached Ash, tugged at his shirt, and whispered softly. Ash and Misty's minds went blank for a moment, as if their computers had crashed, when they heard Sloking's words. After a long pause, Lu Feng's gentle cough brought them back to their senses. Sloking can talk, Xiaojian said, his voice trembling as he swallowed. Ash and the others reacted with similar shock. They hadn't imagined that, besides Team Rocket's Meowth and the Millennium Ghastly they'd encountered in Maiden's Gorge, there were other Pokémon capable of speaking. Watching Sloking's receding figure, Ash and Flora hurried after him. Led by Sloking, they arrived at a temple with towering stone pillars, blanketed by falling snow. Controller, please place the 3 treasures in their respective locations within the temple, in the proper order. Sloking turned and addressed Ash solemnly. Oh, I see. Ash nodded quickly, stumbling towards the nearby temple. He pulled out the 3 treasures from his pocket and carefully examined the 3 empty spaces in the temple. Seeing that the hollows behind the empty spaces corresponded to 3 islands not far away, a sudden realization dawned on him. This is the Ice Island, this is the Thunder Island, and this is the Fire Island. Ash carefully placed the 3 treasures in their respective positions and silently retreated. As the 3 treasures returned to their proper places, a trio of colors shone from the temple, slowly interweaving to form a green, lifelike hue. Then, Sloking turned to Flora, instructing her to approach the temple and play the Lugia song. Flora stepped forward, took out the ocean flute, took a deep breath, and, with a serious expression, began to play the ancient tune. Suddenly, the ice and snow near the temple began to dissipate, and under a magical force, began to return to its original state. The runic symbols carved into the temple floor shimmered, each gleaming with a green glow of life. The surrounding stone pillars flickered rhythmically to notes of the melody. Streams of green, life-giving water gushed from the temple, flowing along grooves in the ground and spreading across Asia Island. Lu Feng's expression shifted as he watched the scene unfold. Although he had been prepared, he was still momentarily stunned. This scene is happening in the elf world. It feels strange. Isn't this a formation from the fantasy world? Lu Feng pondered with a complex expression, his heart restless. Soon after, the severe weather caused by the turbulent ocean currents began to dissipate, and the Orange Islands gradually recovered. With the help of this miraculous power, the battered Lugia, the god of the sea, was revived, and the 3 mythical birds, struck down by the combined hammers of Reshiram and Lugia, also recovered. Their anger subsided. After circling for a moment, they each flew back to their own islands, disappearing from view. Seeing the Orange Islands restored to their original state, the numerous wild Pokémon that had traveled thousands of miles began to leave. Trainers who had reacted, along with Professor Oak and the television reporters who had just climbed out of the crashed helicopter, rushed to the temple on Asia Island. Lu Feng, noticing the commotion around him, raised an eyebrow and returned to Lugia, signaling it to leave Asia Island and find a quiet place. Lugia, sensing the large crowd, let out a resounding roar, flapping its wings, and flew away from Asia Island. Lu Feng, Satoshi and the others looked at Lu Feng and Lugia, about to say something, but were unable to, and could only watch them depart. Shortly after they left, Professor Oak and his men arrived, just in time to see Lu Feng riding Lugia away. The photographer from Golden City TV seized the opportunity to capture this unforgettable scene, preserving it forever in a photograph. The image was breathtakingly beautiful. As the sun set, its afterglow shone, a crimson glow spread across the sky, creating a clear, serene scene. The young trainer, piloting Lugia, drifted away, leaving behind only a majestic silhouette. Countless other trainers, drawn to the scene, watched with a mixture of envy and regret, their hearts awash with mixed emotions. At this moment, Lu Feng, riding on Lugia's back, paid no attention to anything else. He listened to the notifications from the system, a broad smile on his face, his whole body brimming with joy. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the legendary quest, rescuing the 3 legendary birds. Receive the Lugia clan's friendship, 4 legendary items, revealing mirror, ancient music, holy ash, soul heart, and plus 5% world integration, world announcement. Congratulations to player 9527 for completing the legendary quest. World integration has significantly increased. Please continue your efforts. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining EVZ and 18 attribute gems. Upon hearing the system notification, many Blue Star players paused for a moment, sighed silently, and ignored it. Clearly, they had already prepared for the outcome of this incident and weren't surprised. Lu Feng let out a long breath, his tense state instantly relaxed. He pointed to the location of Gardevoir and Gilroy, instructing Lugia to slowly descend nearby. He carefully examined Lugia's scales and its gleaming silver feathers, a cunning look in his eyes, and he felt extremely excited. Next is the time to reap the rewards, Lu Feng thought to himself. Oh. Chapter 232, inviting the new victim, the sea god Lugia, to give a speech. Not long after, Lu Feng and Lugia landed and slowly came to the vicinity of Gardevoir and Geluda. Gardevoir, thank you for your hard work. Lu Feng glanced at the dejected Geluda and said softly to Gardevoir. Gardevoir shook its head and responded to Lu Feng softly, secretly breathing a sigh of relief. Originally, when seeing the legendary war that had just broken out, all kinds of scenes of destroying the world and breaking mountains and rivers emerged, Gardevoir had a feeling of worry in its heart. At this moment, seeing Lu Feng return safely, it finally put down the stone in its heart. Hero of the Phoenix King, thank you for this time. Lugia looked at Lu Feng with soft eyes, made a soft sound, and used telepathy to communicate with Lu Feng. Lu Feng scratched his head, an embarrassed expression on his face. He smiled and replied, Lugia, you should just call me Lu Feng. I find it a little strange that your clan always calls me the hero of the Phoenix King. Lugia stared at Lu Feng in astonishment, his expression shifting, but he nodded. He detected a lingering meaning in Lu Feng's words and asked curiously, Lu Feng, have you seen any other Lugia? Lu Feng's lips curled up slightly, suppressing a smile as he put on a serious expression. I once met a mother and son Lugia in the Whirlpool Islands, and I also know there's a dark Lugia. A tender look flickered in Lugia's eyes as Lugia spoke of the mother and son, and a slight fluctuation in his aura. Then, at the mention of a dark Lugia, his face darkened, a look of confusion forming. After a moment's silence, Lugia finally couldn't suppress his confusion and asked Lu Feng, what is this dark Lugia you're talking about? Can you tell me in detail? Lu Feng recalled the stone tablet he had seen in the ancient city of Cheoj and nodded to Lugia with a heavy heart. He pondered for a moment, then pulled the feather left by dark Lugia from his backpack. He spoke in a low voice, this story begins a long time ago. Then, in brief words, Lu Feng briefly described the situation to Lugia, explaining the true nature of dark Lugia. Lugia listened quietly to Lu Feng's account, his expression shifting, gradually becoming gloomy, his body trembling slightly, as if he were forcibly suppressing his anger. When Lu Feng finished, Lugia lowered his head, lost in thought, as if digesting the information in his words. Lu Feng's gaze was as calm as water as he gazed at the thoughtful Lugia, quietly waiting. After a long moment, Lugia raised his head and sighed, his emotions filled with mixed feelings. I didn't expect this would happen. Seeing Lugia regain his composure, Lu Feng quickly addressed him, Lugia, if dark Lugia emerges, could you please help me reseal it? Lugia, with a hint of human consideration, nodded gently, agreeing to Lu Feng's request. While the dark Lugia wasn't native to the spirit world, it was still a member of the Lugia clan. If it escaped, according to the information contained in the stone tablet, it would undoubtedly bring discredit upon the Lugia clan. Furthermore, having just received Lu Feng's help, it would be unreasonable to refuse now. It was logical for him to help Lu Feng and reseal his fellow creature that had fallen into darkness. Seeing Lugia agree, Lu Feng couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, feeling a surge of relief. He had shared the information about Dark Lugia with the intention of recruiting Lugia. He knew full well that the Dark Lugia sealed within the ancient city of Cheoj was a ticking time bomb, poised to explode at any moment. To prevent his family from being affected, he had no choice but to defuse it. While he had entertained numerous ideas before Blue Star's integration into the Pokémon world, he had chosen to abandon them due to his lack of strength, leaving the matter to simmer. Lugia peeled a pure silver feather from its body, which fluttered into Lu Feng's hands. Lu Feng said earnestly, this is my feather. If you need my help, you can use it to summon me. Lu Feng, secretly delighted at the prospect of acquiring another legendary item, carefully stowed it away in his bag. He also released his Pokémon, except Reshiram, and even brought Mashot to the rescue. Lu Feng looked up at Lugia and said with a grin, Lugia, please help me. My Pokémon need your help. Lugia's expression froze, and he stared at Lu Feng in disbelief, speechless. He had already heard something in Lu Feng's words. He wanted him to help train Pokémon. The thought of him, the mighty god of the sea, one of the few high legendaries, being reduced to helping train Pokémon made Lugia feel a little depressed. and his expression became extremely unnatural. Machado caught a glimpse of Lugia's changing expression, shook his head slightly, and sighed silently in his heart. "Hey, welcome to the new victim, the god of the sea, Lugia, to give your speech?" Lugia was silent for a moment, his eyes fixed on Lu Feng, as if trying to understand how he could so calmly offer such an unwelcome request. Lu Feng looked at Lugia with a calm expression, without a trace of embarrassment, which made Lugia feel a little frustrated. Finally, thanks to his persistent persuasion and the help he had just given, Lugia, despite his discomfort, agreed to Lu Feng's unreasonable request. Of course, Lu Feng wasn't asking for Lugia's help for free. He took the opportunity to retrieve the magical tablet and placed it directly in front of Lugia, hoping to use its power to boost Gardevoir's strength. Lugia gave Lu Feng a deep, meaningful look, but said nothing. Time slipped by, and 5 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 5 days, Lu Feng first sent Jaluta to a nearby island and contacted Miss Jinser to inform her of Jaluta's actions, asking her to report them to the League. Then, he returned to his temporary island and quietly waited for Lugia's help in training his Pokémon. After 5 days, Gardevoir's strength improved dramatically, reaching the late King stage and within reach of the semi-champion stage. While the other Pokémon didn't make as much progress as Gardevoir, they also gained a lot. If it weren't for Wu Feng's call, letting him know the Nations League was about to begin, Lu Feng would have wanted to stay here and let Lugia help him train for free. After a reluctant farewell, Lu Feng returned to the Blue Star continent with his many Pokémon. Lugia looked at Lu Feng as he gradually retreated, sighed softly, and jumped into the sea, disappearing. Chapter 233, The Hirayama Gym is about to open. April 18th, Thursday. The moonlight was bright and flawless, and the night sky was dotted with twinkling stars, making the night seem alluring. Lu Feng and Gar glided through the hazy night, finally returning to Pingshan City. Seeing the familiar surroundings, he dragged his exhausted body straight to his bed, falling into deep sleep without even taking off his clothes. The next morning, with the familiar sound of his alarm clock, Lu Feng scrambled out of bed, bleary-eyed. He gently drew aside the curtains, feeling the cool breeze from the windowsill, and instantly regained consciousness. He went to the bathroom to wash up quickly, then to the refrigerator. His expression darkened as he looked at the empty box. To be traveling for such a long time is truly absurd, Lu Feng sighed, muttering to himself. He quietly opened the door and walked to a food court not far from home. He casually ordered a bowl of his familiar tofu pudding, dipped it in a little sugar, and devoured it with relish. Sure enough, tofu pudding should have sugar in it. Those who prefer it too salty are heretics. Lu Feng savored the delicious tofu pudding, subtly disdaining those who favor it too salty. 15 minutes later, Lu Feng left the food court and leisurely walked towards his gym. When he arrived at the Pingshan gym, he saw the deserted entrance, the bleak autumn breeze, and an awkward expression crossed his face. The Pingshan gym, long established, had never opened due to Lu Feng's preoccupations. Even though the Great Xia Kingdom had announced several certified gyms with their names and locations, many new trainers were still somewhat confused when they heard of it. Just as Lu Feng approached the Pingshan gym gate and was about to step inside, a voice behind him stopped him in his tracks. "Hey, buddy. Don't go any further. The Pingshan gym isn't open yet," a young man in white clothes and glasses warned him, noting his movements. Hearing his words, Lu Feng turned sideways and examined him carefully. The young man in white wasn't very old, perhaps around 19 or 20, just a year or two younger than Lu Feng. Lu Feng smiled and said calmly, "Thank you for the heads up, friend. I understand." The young man waved his hand, acting as if he wasn't being polite, and spoke to him in a familiar manner. "I don't know what's wrong with this gym leader. He's so unprofessional. The other gyms have been open for over a month, and the Pingshan gym hasn't even opened yet." Lu Feng detected a hint of resentment in the young man's words. He touched his nose awkwardly, a flicker of unnaturalness in his eyes. After talking with the young man for a while, Lu Feng learned his name was Hoenn. But for some reason, whenever he heard his name, Lu Feng couldn't help but think of the slogan, "Bounce, bounce, bounce away crew's feet." If it weren't for his professional training and the forced restraint, he would have burst out laughing several times. Hurrying to get to the gym, Lu Feng exchanged only a few words before turning and heading straight for it. Hoenn stared at Lu Feng's retreating figure, his mouth slightly open. He was about to say something when a robotic, electronic chime rang in his ear, silencing his words. Ding, Identity confirmed. Pingshan Gym Master Lu Feng, welcome to the gym. He watched Lu Feng enter the gym, his expression utterly dazed, frozen in place. Yuan had never imagined that a random person he'd met would be the elusive Pingshan Gym Master. I think I even complained about him right in front of him. Yuan's dark face flushed as he recalled what he had just said. Complaining in front of the person who actually did it, who wouldn't feel awkward? No wonder he'd seen a slightly uneasy expression on Lu Feng's face just now, and sensed a hint of murderous intent in the air. With this thought, Yuan quickly fled the Pingshan Gym and ran towards the distant battle club. Meanwhile, Lu Feng entered the gym, carefully surveyed its surroundings, and nodded with satisfaction. It must be said that the Great Xia Kingdom's infrastructure is quite impressive. After a brief stroll, Lu Feng reached a battle area within the gym. He first pulled a portable Pokeball transfer machine from his backpack and set it up briefly according to the instructions. Then, he pulled out his communicator and contacted Professor Oak. After explaining the situation, Professor Oak transferred all 4 of Lu Feng's Pokémon from the laboratory. Moments later, the light from the machine faded, revealing 4 more Pokéballs. Lu Feng gently removed the Pokéballs and released all 4 Pokémon. Instantly, 4 blazing beams of light erupted, and Tajikus, Regiaritus, Jengar, and Porygon all appeared before Lu Feng. Lu Feng apologized profusely to Tajikus and Regiaritus, explaining that their limited carry slots had meant they'd missed out on numerous opportunities to improve their strength. He then turned his gaze to Porygon, locking eyes with it, and softly said, "Porygon, welcome to my team." Porygon stared at Lu Feng with a slightly vacant gaze before nodding. Using his detect skill, Lu Feng briefly checked Porygon's information and saw that it was only at the elite level, with only a quasi-champion aptitude. He couldn't help but sigh. But remembering that Porygon's primary role wasn't combat, Lu Feng calmed down. He then shared his thoughts with several of his Pokémon, hoping for their understanding. Hearing that they would be taking turns guarding the gym, the Pokémon looked at each other in bewilderment, their eyes twitching. They wore expressions of helplessness, appearing exhausted. Goodness! They're not exploiting legendary Pokémon anymore, but are targeting them instead. If the other staff members hadn't been away, upon hearing Lu Feng's powerful proposal, they would have raised a finger and said with a complicated expression, "You're worthy of me. You can actually come up with such a ridiculous idea." Lu Feng, slacking off. "I'm serious." After discussing it, Lu Feng called the relevant number and reported it to the authorities, asking them to send some staff over as soon as possible to help maintain the normal operation of the gym. Chapter 234, An Actor's Self-Cultivation, Pokémon. April 22nd, Monday. Time flew by, and 3 days had already passed in the blink of an eye. After 3 days of preparation, the officially designated staff were ready. Lu Feng gazed at the bright, sunny sky, nodded with satisfaction, and decided to open the Hirayama Gym. Suddenly, countless new trainers, filled with fervent and lofty ideals, flocked to the Hirayama Gym to begin their first gym tournament. Perhaps feeling guilty about these trainers, Lu Feng accepted all of them, accepting their challenges. The challengers waited confidently, imagining the moment of earning their first badge. But the outcome was always cruel. Most of the trainers who came to challenge him were only average to elite, far behind the weakest Porygon on Lu Feng's team. They were no match for him. Therefore, they entered the gym quickly and left just as quickly. In less than half a day, Lu Feng completed all the challenge matches. Countless challengers walked out of the Hirayama Gym with numb, pale faces. Some of the less mentally prepared challengers were even reduced to tears by Lu Feng's Porygon. Seeing this, Lu Feng's face was filled with resignation. After a moment's reflection, he decided to temporarily close the gym. The sun was shining brightly, and the breeze was gentle. Standing in the gym's backyard, a look of disappointment washed over him. He gazed at the Pokémon with a complex expression and sighed deeply. "This can't go on. Can't you be a little gentler?" Lu Feng said, feeling a headache, pressing his temple. "If we continue like this, our gym will be complained about." The Pokémon stared at Lu Feng with innocent expressions, filled with helplessness. Eevee approached him indignantly, shouting at him in frustration. Eevee, they knew what Lu Feng was saying, but they couldn't control their own strength. They couldn't be allowed to rig a match. When Lu Feng heard Eevee's words, his eyes lit up with a strange light, and he was instantly filled with excitement. He couldn't help but rub Eevee's head and praise it. "Eevee, your suggestion is excellent. The organization has decided to adopt it." Eevee's expression froze instantly, and it turned its head with a puzzled look on its face. Eevee, did I say something? Did I mean that? The Pokémon shook their heads. From now on, do as Eevee said. Try to hold back a bit and don't let the challenger lose too badly. Feng looked at the Pokémon with a serious expression and said with great earnestness. To prevent you from overdoing it, I'll go find you some cheats. I hope you learned something, the Pokémon, with. After Feng finished speaking, he turned and left the battle arena, heading towards a room in the gym. The Pokémon's faces frowned in disbelief, and they exchanged silent words. Garcomp, Ka. Written in large Chinese characters on the cover before them were the words Actors Self-Cultivation, Pokémon. This book, painstakingly compiled by Kalos region champion Karuna, is specifically designed to teach Pokémon how to improve their acting skills. Sun rose and moon set, light alternated with darkness, and 3 days passed. After 3 days of training, Feng's Pokémon finally grasped the instructions in the secret book and were now able to perform relatively crude performances against the trainers who challenged them. While they still had a long way to go before reaching the level of Emperor Pikachu, Feng was already very satisfied. The trainers who challenged him, while also noticing some of the Pokémon's acting and deliberately playing it down, didn't expose them. After all, they had already experienced the fear of being dominated during the first few days of the amusement park opening. Now, why would they hesitate to expose these poor performances and experience the same feeling of being beaten to tears? Feng breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing this. During this time, he would also offer suggestions based on the challenger's shortcomings, fulfilling his duties as a gym leader. Of course, the joy of bullying a weak opponent, or perhaps the time spent mentoring a newcomer, is always short-lived. 2 weeks after Feng returned to Pingshan City, he received another call from Feng. I heard your gym is being rather lenient with challengers. Feng's voice, a profound tone, rang through the phone, causing Feng's expression to harden. Feng was silent for a moment, then said with a wry smile, President Wu, you can't blame me. If I didn't do this, even the league's top trainers would have a hard time earning badges from me. Feng's words choked him, leaving him speechless. He naturally understood what Feng was saying, so he didn't criticize him too harshly. How about this? I'll set a challenge threshold for your gym. Only those who have earned 7 badges are eligible to participate in your gym challenge. What do you think? Feng suggested, his voice deep. Feng raised his eyelids and nodded slightly, which was considered as his approval of this proposal. Then, Feng changed the subject and said solemnly, the time for the competition held by various countries has been determined. You can gather in the imperial capital in the next few days, okay? I understand. I will leave tomorrow morning, Feng replied calmly and silently put down the phone in his hand. After thinking for a while, Feng first asked Rotom to tell Porygon and let it pay attention to the relevant information at all times. Then he set off with Tajikus, Eevee, Regiarius and Charizard. The rest of the Pokémon needed to guard the gym and respond to the challenges of the challengers. If Feng needed to change Pokémon, he would let Rotom contact Porygon through the internet and use the portable Pokéball transmission machine to transmit it. Chapter 235, League Rules of Various Nations, Unreliable Teammates. The next day, just as the sun rose, its rays bathed the earth, and the streets of the imperial capital began to become congested. Feng, riding a Charizard, landed at the headquarters of the Great Xia Alliance. Led by a staff member, he entered a dedicated meeting room. A number of people were already waiting inside, and as Feng entered, everyone's eyes were fixed on him, leaving him bewildered and a bit lost. Feng noticed Feng's presence and gestured for him to find a seat before silently saying, well, our Great Xia players participating in the Internation League are finally here. Let me first briefly explain the rules of the league. You must be mentally prepared. Everyone held their breath and listened intently after hearing Feng's words. Feng, seeing the scene before him, felt a surge of relief. He began to play a PowerPoint presentation on his computer and explained to the crowd, a total of 160 countries and regions are participating in this competition. Each country will send a 10-player team, 5 of whom are regular players and 5 are substitutes. The league will adopt a 5 versus 5 national competition format, with each national team sending 5 players to compete in the official matches. Noticing the somewhat subdued atmosphere in the conference room, Feng paused, then spoke with a hint of resignation. If you have any questions while listening to me, feel free to ask. It's permitted. There's no need to look so serious. Chairman Wu, I'm not sure what you mean by the national competition format you're referring to. Seeing no one speaking, Lu Feng couldn't help but ask. Wu Feng glanced at Lu Feng with satisfaction, paused for a moment, and then began to explain in detail. The national competition format consists of 3 rounds, individual, team, and arena. The individual competition consists of 2 rounds, the team competition consists of 2 rounds, and the arena competition consists of 1 round. The team match is a doubles match format, with each team sending 2 players to compete. The team that defeats the other team's 2 players wins the round. The tournament match rules require 1 trainer to face 3 members of the opposing team. Successfully defeating all 3 is considered victory. The 3 rounds are scored at 1, 2, and 3 points, for a total of 9 points. The team that scores 4 or more points wins the round. These 3 rounds are not played in a fixed order. Instead, a draw determines which round takes precedence. If the tournament match and team match are played first, winning the first 2 rounds automatically secures victory. The rules also restrict which trainers can participate. Trainers participating in the individual match can re-enter the tournament match, and vice versa. However, trainers participating in the team match cannot participate in the other 2 rounds. After hearing Wu Feng's explanation, everyone nodded in understanding. After explaining the competition format and rules, the PowerPoint presentation in the conference room moved to the next page, explaining the rewards. Wu Feng glanced at everyone present and continued, "This competition is not only important for China, but also for everyone present here." Everyone stared at Wu Feng in confusion, unsure of what he meant. Ran Kaiangsha slowly stood up and asked Wu Feng, "President Wu, what do you mean by that? Due to the fusion of worlds, the secret realms previously hidden on Blue Star have all vanished. Some of the buildings, items, and Pokémon within the secret realms have fallen into the newly formed Blue Star continent, including some precious resources," Wu Feng explained. "These resources have been collected by the various nations and used as rewards for this tournament. Many of them will be of great help to trainers in raising Pokémon, provided you achieve good rankings. Of course, these are just the rewards from the league. Great Xiao will also offer other rewards to those who perform well in the competition, so please work hard." Everyone took a deep breath, their faces gradually flushing. Lu Feng was also shocked by his words. He had never expected the nations to invest so heavily in this tournament. After all, Blue Star once merged with a parallel universe, leaving behind many valuable items. Items like the orb fragment and the rainbow feather, which had greatly helped Lu Feng in the past, were just some of them. "I need to take this league seriously," Lu Feng thought to himself. He knew full well that, according to Wu Feng's words, the rewards would inevitably include some dusty legendary items, which made Lu Feng uneasy. Noticing the agitation, Wu Feng quickly signaled for silence and continued, "Now that we've discussed the league prizes, let's discuss the roster for the tournament. Currently, our preliminary selection of regular players includes Lu Feng, Ran Kaiangsha, Zheng Luer, Zhang Dingding, and Wang Chenkin. The substitutes are Jin Ren, Lin Bei, Yishu, Xiaoluo, and Xu Zhu. This is only the preliminary list of the Great Xia Alliance, not the final one. Anyone here who wishes to challenge can apply accordingly. Successful challenges will allow them to take their place. The challenge for this roster will last for 3 days. Please seize the opportunity. Don't miss the time limit and leave yourself with regrets." After speaking, Wu Feng stepped aside, took a sip from his teacup on the table, and silently observed the whispers. Some of the trainers in the meeting room flickered slightly at this, their gazes flickering over Lu Feng and the others, as if searching for their own opponents. Lu Feng looked at the list on the projector, his expression became very strange, and he muttered to himself in a low voice. "My father is Zanger. My son Wang Teng has the potential to be an emperor, and my younger brother, what kind of amazing teammates are these? Why are some of them a little unreliable?" At this time, the sound of a battle invitation was heard not far away, which instantly attracted Lu Feng's attention and made him gradually come back to his senses. Seeing that everyone on the list had been challenged, Lu Feng sat quietly in his chair, silently waiting for the challenger to come. But what surprised him was that many trainers pointed at him, with expressions of fear and on their faces, deliberately avoiding his position, as if they had given up the idea of challenging him. Lu Feng shook his head, glanced at everyone lightly, stood up from his seat, and walked towards Wu Feng. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 236, Exchange of Land Shark Mega Evolution Stone. Lu Feng came over to Wu Feng and sat down a short distance from him. He took a sip of the tea in front of him and asked, full of confusion, President Wu, why aren't you participating in the competition this time? Wu Feng smiled wryly at Lu Feng's question and said somewhat disappointedly, the League has regulations. The presidents of each country's alliance cannot leave the field and must work together to maintain order during the competition. Lu Feng stared at him in astonishment, his brows slightly furrowed. He said in disbelief, how could such a thing exist? It's truly ridiculous. Wu Feng sighed helplessly and said with a complicated expression, who says it's not true? But the presidents of other countries' alliances are ordinary people. What's the big deal about not leaving the field? So this is another unequal rule designed to curb the Great Xia Kingdom? Lu Feng heard a hint of resentment in his words and asked thoughtfully. Wu Feng nodded gently and drank the tea in his hand. Although he appeared calm and composed on the surface, Lu Feng, looking at the teacup clutched in one hand, knew that his heart wasn't as calm as it appeared. President Wu, why don't you just step down temporarily and resume your duties after the competition is over? Lu Feng was silent for a moment, scratching his head. It's not that simple. If I could do that, I would have resigned long ago, Wu Feng said in a low voice, his head hanging. Those foreigners collected the list of names before the rules were released to prevent this. Even if I resign now and compete, the League won't recognize my eligibility. After hearing his explanation, Lu Feng's anger welled up. Recalling the inequality that the Great Xia Kingdom had suffered over the years, he became furious. Alright, let's not talk about this. I'll leave the next competition to you. Wu Feng, as if sensing Lu Feng's suppressed anger, quickly changed the subject. He pointed to the battle footage uploaded to a nearby computer and jokingly asked Lu Feng, look at your next teammates. What do you want to say about their strength? Upon hearing his words, Lu Feng realized he had lost his composure and quickly calmed himself. He looked at the battle footage Wu Feng was pointing at and nodded slightly. A few of them are considered top tier, probably among the best trainers on the entire Blue Star continent. He observed carefully for a moment, carefully comparing the current strength of the Blue Star, and then spoke slowly. The top tier he was referring to only refers to the current trainers on Blue Star, excluding himself, and does not include himself. Most of these top-tier trainers possess at least one quasi-elite Pokémon, making them the best in the entire Blue Star continent. Remember, the current Blue Star continent doesn't have the convenience of leveling up through experience like it did in the early days. To continue improving Pokémon strength, one must carefully cultivate them over time. Therefore, one can imagine the significance of attaining quasi-elite Pokémon at this point. Even so, there was still a significant gap between these trainers' abilities and Lu Feng's. Leveraging the advantages of information, Lu Feng's strength far surpassed that of a typical Blue Star trainer. In gaming terms, this meant he surpassed the current level of several versions. It would be a bit unfair to include him in the group. Therefore, Lu Feng consciously avoided the Blue Star continent, spending most of his time in other parts of the Pokémon world. Wu Feng was clearly aware of this, so he didn't comment on Lu Feng's sudden departure, avoiding the numerous trainers surrounding him to grab a free cup of tea. Then, as if remembering something, he patted his head and whispered to Lu Feng, we've collected some more of those items from last time. We need your help identifying them this time. Lu Feng glanced at him with a puzzled expression, his face bewildered. Only after Wu Feng's prompting did he gradually understand what he was talking about. Lu Feng nodded imperceptibly and followed Wu Feng into his office, where they waited in silence for a moment. A moment later, Wu Feng carefully removed the box and placed it in front of Lu Feng, solemnly declaring, here are my latest collections. Please. Lu Feng didn't refuse and gently opened the lid of the box, revealing a dozen or so marble-like stones of varying colors, nestled quietly within. These are from Alakazam's Slow Hippo and Steelix, Lu Feng observed carefully, writing down the names of each megastone. There are even megastones for Garchomp and Gyarados. As he continued to examine the megastones in the box, Lu Feng noticed two with slightly different colors, resembling the auras of his own Garchomp and red Gyarados, and he exclaimed in surprise. He was silent for a moment, remembering his promise to Garchomp. He suddenly looked up at Wu Feng and offered to trade some items for the two megastones. Wu Feng stared at him for a moment, then slowly nodded, agreeing. He knew full well that if you want a horse to run, you have to keep it well fed. Promises of hope are unrealistic. Furthermore, it was only with Lu Feng's reminder that they finally understood the value of these items. If the Great Xia Kingdom hadn't collected so few megastones, leaving too many trainers to share, Wu Feng would have given them to him outright. Lu Feng breathed a sigh of relief at Wu Feng's agreement and silently unloaded a number of items from his backpack. Most of these items had been taken from Manaphi's home, and most of them were of little use to Lu Feng. Perhaps their only use was in exchanging them for alliance coins to support his finances when he was short of money. At this moment, Lu Feng didn't feel bad about using some of his items to exchange for the mega stones he needed. After completing the exchange, Lu Feng remembered the paper on super evolution, which would be published around June. He quickly reminded Wu Feng, "President Wu, the research results on super evolution have been discovered. With only 2 months left until the paper's publication, if you want to continue collecting super evolution stones, you need to speed up." Wu Feng's expression froze upon hearing this. He nodded solemnly and quickly dialed the relevant number, instructing the person in charge to hurry up. Lu Feng watched the scene quietly without saying anything. After drinking another glass of rain previous Longjing tea, he left his office and headed for his room. Chapter 237 Groudon, I feel like I'm being implied again. It was noon. Lu Feng first returned to his dormitory room, settling everything, and then headed to the training ground at the Alliance headquarters. Perhaps because the League was approaching, the training ground had been urgently expanded to accommodate the Great Xia national team's training. It was now significantly larger than when Lu Feng last visited. Judging by the renovations, a significant amount of financial resources had been spent. The Great Xia national leadership, mindful of the principle that a good workman must first sharpen his tools, was a principle they always cherished. They also understood that if the results of the leagues among the nations were affected by limited training grounds, the gains would be disproportionately high. Therefore, they had always been generous with their funding for this area. Lu Feng briefly registered at the management office and received an electronic card from the staff. Following the instructions on the card, he leisurely made his way to his assigned field. Click. A few minutes later, Lu Feng arrived at his assigned field. He gently swiped the electronic gate, heard the mechanical door swing, and stepped inside. He glanced around at the vast expanse of space and the neatly arranged equipment, nodding with satisfaction. Lu Feng's training ground was quite spacious, roughly the size of a standard auditorium. This must have been planned and constructed with a number of Pokémon trainers would bring with him. Lu Feng released his Pokémon and prepared for pre-match training. The newly constructed training ground at League headquarters had greatly exceeded Lu Feng's expectations. After a moment's deliberation, Lu Feng instructed Rotom to transfer Garchomp and the other Pokémon over via the network. Only Swampert, the big brother, remained at the gym to continue guarding it and facing the challengers. He then carefully checked the status of his Pokémon and began to formulate a training plan. This time, he was primarily focusing on Garchomp and Gyarados. The other Pokémon could continue their training as planned, continuing toward the previously planned goals. Lu Feng first distributed the attribute gems he had harvested last time to various Pokémon, allowing them to utilize the energy contained in the gems to assist in their training. Then, he shifted his focus to Garchomp and gently waved, signaling it to come closer. Garchomp approached Lu Feng with a puzzled growl, questioning his purpose. Lu Feng fixed his gaze on Garchomp, then pulled Garchomp's Megastone and the bracelet that held it from his pocket and handed them directly to the Pokémon. Garchomp felt a fatal attraction from the Megastone, a desire for life's next level of advancement. This is the power I spoke of before. Let's try it now, Lu Feng said, his eyes lowered and his smile beaming as he looked at Garchomp. Garchomp nodded quickly, took the Megastone, and carefully placed it on his arm, his body trembling slightly. Lu Feng took a deep breath and said solemnly, "Garius, are you ready?" Garchomp raised his head and stared directly at Lu Feng, his gaze etched with unwavering determination, as if responding. Mega Evolution. As Lu Feng's voice faded, Garchomp's body was enveloped by the light emanating from the Mega Evolution Stone, obscuring its full extent. He waited for the Mega Evolution light to completely fade, and Super Garchomp emerged. Lu Feng examined it carefully for a moment. Garchomp was now taller than before, its head and shoulders thinning. White bone spurs grew on either side of its abdomen, and a red spike protruded from its knees. The white single toes on its hands and its shark fin-like wings had also undergone a dramatic transformation, transforming into two massive sickles, emitting a chilling, murderous aura. With the help of Mega Evolution, Garcomp's strength had temporarily reached the late Heavenly King stage. At that moment, Garcomp felt a surge of power, capable of easily defeating its pre-Mega evolved self, a thrill that filled it with excitement. Looking at the image of Garcomp, Feng reflected on it, a thoughtful expression on his face. An idea suddenly struck him for its development. Garcomp's high physical attack stat, its ability to briefly burst into incredibly fast speeds, and its Mega-evolved form. Considering these factors, Feng planned to develop it into a speedy swordsman. By utilizing ancient sword techniques inherited from the Great Xia Kingdom, combined with sword dance to amplify them, and leveraging its supersonic attack speed, Garcomp could unleash attacks like a comet striking the moon, dealing immense damage before the opponent could react. With one strike of the sword, all gods fall. 74 gods in heaven must bow their heads before me. The 74 here refers to mythical beasts and legendary Pokémon, not counting ultra beasts and pre-evolved forms. Originally, it should have been 75, but one legendary couldn't fly and couldn't take to the skies. Groudon, I feel like I'm being implied again. Cliff Sword warning JPG. Feng's heart began to flutter at the thought. As for the red Gyarados, Feng planned to emulate the Dragonite, allowing it to harness its own rage energy. This would allow it to control the negative effects of powerful moves, unleashing a stronger attack before the opponent reacted. For example, he would have the red Gyarados attempt to use its rage energy to control the chaotic effects of a reverse scale attack, allowing it to perform a second reverse scale attack, unleashing an even more powerful attack. In short, the idea was to use the unexpectedly gained rage energy as a core to influence powerful moves with side effects, increasing their power in a short period of time. After formulating his plan, Feng contacted the training grounds management, hoping to obtain videos and books on ancient martial arts sword techniques or Western knightly swordsmanship. Upon hearing Feng's request, the staff consulted with the relevant supervisors and began diligently helping Feng collect the necessary materials, quickly delivering them. After getting what he wanted, Feng informed Garcomp and Gyarados of his plan, and asked them to start the relevant training and attempts according to the plan he specified. At the same time, as the competition time is approaching, Daxia Kingdom took out a lot of precious resources to help the contestants improve their strength. This allowed Feng's Pokémon to obtain a rich supply of resources, and their strength continued to improve. As time passed, after staying at the Alliance headquarters for 5 days, it was finally time to set off for the League venue. During this period, after 3 days of competition and challenges, the list of players participating in the League was officially released. The list of players representing Daxia Kingdom in the League this time is mainly as follows: official team members, Feng, Ran Qianxia, Zhang Dingbing, Jin Ren, Zhang Liuer. Substitute players, Chuk Su, Lin Bei, Pei Liuyan, Tang Sei, Xiang Yijin. Chapter 238 League Opening. First match opponent. April 27th, the Great Xia team, led by Feng, arrived aboard a special aircraft at Hoenn Mountain, the venue for the Internation League. Hoenn Mountain was once a mountain range hidden within a secret realm on Blue Star. Later, due to the great fusion of worlds, the spatial tremors shattered all the secret realms and merged them into the newly formed Blue Star continent. Hoenn Mountain contains numerous rare resources and various rare wild Pokémon populations. To prevent the various nations from fighting over these resources, which would have led to internal strife within Blue Star, the nations decided, after friendly negotiations, to make this location the headquarters of the newly established Blue Star Alliance and to divide Hoenn Mountain's interests based on the results of this tournament. According to the original map, Hoenn Mountain's current location is approximately on the border of Great Xia, connecting to the Xianshan and Altai Mountains. Upon exiting the newly built airport near Hoenn Mountain, Feng looked around for a moment and felt a breath of fresh air, rustling their clothes. Seeing the scene before him, Feng's mood brightened. Is this Hoenn Mountain? The air is so fresh. Jin Ren took a deep breath, his face a look of ecstasy. The other contestants' expressions were similar to Jin Ren's, each filled with emotion. Although the air in the imperial capital had become much fresher after the world fusion, it was infinitely better than before, but compared to the Hoenn Mountain before him, there was still a significant gap. Feng glanced at the expressions of the crowd, shook his head slightly, and gently reminded them, "All right. Come with me to the athletes' village to register for the competition first." We can handle the rest after registration." Hearing Wu Feng's words, everyone quickly came to their senses and followed him towards the athletes' village. It took half an hour to take a special bus from the airport at the foot of the mountain to the athletes' village halfway up the mountain. A small glimpse reveals a lot. One can only imagine the vastness of Hoenn Mountain. After arriving at the athletes' village, Wu Feng led the 10-member Great Xia team to the village's management office to register and receive their keys, room cards, and other essentials. The rest of the Great Xia support staff had already made preparations in the designated Great Xia area of Hoenn Mountain before the competitors arrived, so they did not depart with Wu Feng and the others. After everything was settled, Lu Feng, feeling a little tired, declined his teammates' invitation to go out and headed directly to the address on his room card. At that moment, he just wanted to get some sleep. Time slipped by, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, all the teams participating in the league had arrived and entered the athletes' village. Perhaps they were being cautious, or perhaps their team leaders had warned them otherwise, but during these few days of preparation, not many players chose to go out. Instead, they quietly stayed in their rooms or went to the separate training grounds in the athletes' village to conduct pre-match training with their teammates. Lu Feng also used these 3 days to meticulously coach the Great Xia contestants on how to use Mega Evolution, perhaps holding a trump card for the Great Xia team. Although not many contestants appeared, Hoenn Mountain was far from deserted as might be expected. Instead, it was bustling with activity. With the upcoming Internation League, countless tourists, invited guests, and even some nearby residents flocked to the area surrounding Hoenn Mountain to await the league's opening. This atmosphere quickly unfolded, and May 5th, the opening day of the league, arrived. With a roar of fireworks, the Internation League officially began. First, the leaders of many powerful nations appeared, launching a series of prepared performances and delivering lengthy speeches. Because this was a joint competition, the impact was enormous. Throughout the performances and speeches, reporters and television crews from various countries were stationed. Countless cameras were trained on the podium, broadcasting live to those unable to attend. Then, it was the turn of the representatives from various nations to draw lots, confirming their regions and opponents for tomorrow's competition. With this complete, the entire opening ceremony concluded, leaving each team to discuss their strategies and prepare for the next day's competition. Lu Feng and the others sat in the designated seats for the Great Xia Nation players, quietly awaiting Wu Feng's return. Shortly after, Wu Feng returned to Lu Feng and the others with a heavy expression. Before they could ask any questions, he whispered, "It's crowded here, so let's return to the players' village and find a quiet meeting room. I'll explain the draw results and other important points." Lu Feng and the others nodded in agreement, and without further comment, they followed Wu Feng out. Once they returned to the players' village and arrived at a quiet, soundproofed meeting room, Wu Feng had everyone take their seats. He then brought out a small blackboard and wrote the numbers drawn, Area 1103. Lu Feng looked at the writing on the small blackboard in surprise, and couldn't help asking Wu Feng, "President Wu, is the area marked on your blackboard our competition area tomorrow?" Seeing that Lu Feng asked the questions they wanted to ask, the other contestants waited quietly for Wu Feng's answer, and all their eyes fell on him. Wu Feng let out a long breath, drew something on the blackboard with chalk, and explained to everyone in a deep voice, "This league is divided into 16 regions. Each region will have 10 participating teams, and 4 teams from each region will be selected to participate in the league's main competition. Among them, those who defeat 2 teams in a row will directly obtain the first 2 main competition spots. One of the remaining 2 spots will be given to the team with a bye, and the 3rd spot will be recompeted by the losing team. In this competition, we have been divided into Region 11. The participating teams in this region are mainly US, Ethiopia, Pharaoh Team, Windmill Team, Siam Team, and Hoenn Team." After Wu Feng finished talking about the participating teams in this region, he paused for a moment, picked up the mineral water on the table, and took a few swigs before continuing to say to the crowd, "As you can see, our opponent tomorrow will be the Hoenn Team, which also has the number 03 feet. Do you have anything to say next?" Zhang Dingding looked at Wu Feng shyly and asked, "President, how strong is Team Hoenn? How should we arrange the lineup for tomorrow's match, based on the little intelligence we have?" Aside from a few small nations in Southeast Asia and Africa, the remaining teams are formidable, especially Pharaoh, Windmill, and Hoenn. Wu Feng was silent for a moment. Then he turned to Lu Feng and asked with a smile, "Lu Feng, what do you think of our lineup?" Seeing everyone in the conference room fix their attention on him, Lu Feng rolled his eyes and curled his lips. "Without information on the other teams yet, I can't make any firm decisions. Let's wait until tomorrow to determine the priorities for the matches before making any further arrangements." Everyone pondered Lu Feng's words silently, agreeing that this was the safest approach at the moment. "In that case, go back home and get some rest today and prepare for tomorrow's match." Everyone nodded in agreement and returned to their dormitories to await tomorrow's match. Chapter 239, The Game Begins, Daksha Team vs Hoenn Team. May 6th, Monday. The Nations League officially began. The participating teams were ready. Following the announcements from the Hoenn Arena's broadcast, the 160 participating teams filed neatly into their respective competition areas. Countless spectators watched their national teams enter, cheering enthusiastically with applause and cheers. Following the staff's instructions, Lu Feng led the Great Xia team slowly into Area 11. Before they could carefully locate their seats, resounding cheers erupted from both sides of the exit and the opposite audience seats. "Great Xia, must win, Master Lu Feng, crush them all. Crush them, ah, ah, ah. Go Great Xia." A myriad of noisy voices echoed throughout the area, one after another, drawing envious glances from many participating teams. Upon realizing they were spectators from Daksha, Lu Feng and the others waved to them, thanking them for their encouragement. Then, at the urging of the staff, everyone headed to the designated rest area, where they quietly awaited the start of the match. 15 minutes later, the referee and staff from Area 11 entered the arena, read the rules, and officially declared the match open. The first to compete were the Pharaohs and Siamese teams. The format consisted of team, individual, and ring matches. The individual matches were a 6 vs -6 all-player battle, requiring victory by defeating all of the opponent's Pokémon. For the team and ring matches, regardless of whether or not they were part of the main competition, each trainer was limited to 3 Pokémon to field, to avoid prolonged all-player battles. With a crisp whistle, the match between the Pharaohs and Siamese teams officially began. Due to the vast disparity in trainer skill between the two countries, and Siamese's poorly organized lineup, they were no match for the Pharaohs. During the team round, the Siamese trainers made numerous mistakes, and thanks to the deliberate targeting of the Pharaoh trainers, they only managed to defeat 3 Pokémon and lost the round. Both team matches lasted less than an hour before ending. Siam's subsequent individual matches were even more disastrous, with Pharaoh's secondary team effortlessly defeating 6 with a single Hippomon. Lu Feng sat in the player's box, watching the match between the two nations through the windshield, and shook his head. After a moment's wait, the second match began. This time, it was between Ethiopia and Windmill. The two nations drew the same order of play as in the first match, but Ethiopia's result was not as disastrous as Siam's. Although Ethiopia ultimately lost to Windmill, they at least won an individual match, saving some face. The following appears to be unrelated text fragments and should likely be omitted. Some spectators who had originally been pessimistic about the Ethiopian team couldn't help but look askance. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. After 2.5 hours of competition, it was finally the turn of the Great Xia Kingdom to play against the Great Hoenn Kingdom. At this moment, the order of the competition modes had already appeared on the big screen in the arena, individual, and team. The arena required both sides to attack and defend the arena. Only by successfully defeating the opponent's only 3 attacking members could the match be considered a winner. At this moment, the Great Xia team had priority in defending the arena. "How have we arranged the order of appearances now?" Zhang Liu looked at the information on the big screen and turned to ask everyone. Since the first match was the arena, which had the highest score, no one present could guarantee that they could win the match smoothly. They all knew that in such an important match, the opposing Great Hoenn team would definitely send out their strongest players. So, after hearing Zhang Liu's question, everyone except Lu Feng fell silent. Looking at the silent crowd, Lu Feng chuckled softly and said calmly, "Why don't you let me test Team Hoenn's strength first?" The other 9 breathed a sigh of relief after hearing Lu Feng's words. They agreed to send Lu Feng to the ring. "Then I'll leave it to you," Ran Kaiangsha and the others said gratefully, looking at the calm Lu Feng. Lu Feng nodded, slowly stood up, opened the door next to the windshield, and walked straight to the competition venue. The first to go is Big Brother Lu Feng, unleashing a powerful attack right off the bat. How are you supposed to respond? We're screwed. Oh, go. 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 Big brother Lu Feng, it's all over. Great Xiao will win. Big brother Lu Feng, I want to see Eevee crush all the naysayers. Greek letter Phi, Greek letter Omega. Seeing that the first player sent out by Great Xiao was Lu Feng, the many Great Xiao spectators in the stands erupted in excitement, cheering enthusiastically as if victory was in sight. Even those who didn't know Lu Feng became excited when they heard him introduced by those around them. The Great Han players, even though they didn't understand the specific meaning, turned indignant after hearing the precise translation from the translator. After a moment's discussion, they decided to give the audience a hard slap in the face and show them the might of Great Han. The Great Cold team immediately sent out their captain, intent on defeating Lu Feng with their strongest form. Li Wanji, the captain, arrived at the competition venue, staring intently at Lu Feng with a look of disdain in his eyes. Although he knew Lu Feng had previously won the Quartz Conference and completed numerous legendary quests, he wasn't particularly intimidated. Li Wanji even harbored a certain kind of inexplicable confidence, believing he could defeat Lu Feng and, using his fame, become famous among the other nations. After all, before Blue Star merged with the Elven world, the people of the Great Cold considered the entire universe theirs. Therefore, Li Wanji's mentality was understandable. Lu Feng glanced at him calmly, as if sensing the implication in Li Wanji's eyes, and said nothing further. I'll show you how powerful I, Li Wanji, am in a moment. Tremble. Smite. Li Wanji spoke to Lu Feng with unbridled arrogance, his demeanor filled with a commanding, condescending air. Lu Feng ignored Li Wanji's provocation and whispered, I hope you can do this. Remember not to cry later. Li Wanji flew into rage upon hearing this and was about to retort. But then he saw the referee enter the ring, ready to go. He swallowed his words and glared at Lu Feng with hatred. At this moment, the match between Great Xia and Great Han officially began. Chapter 240, The Universe's First Blazing Roaring Tiger. The countdown on the big screen ended, and the match between Great Xia and Great Han officially began. Lu Feng glanced at Li Wanji, thought for a moment, and sent out his Eevee as the starting pitcher. With a flash of blazing red light, Eevee appeared on the battlefield with 4 short legs, looking confused. Eevee was stunned for a moment, looked around for a while, and after noticing the current situation, turned his head reluctantly and looked at Lu Feng resentfully. There was an annoyance in his brown eyes, as if he was very dissatisfied with Lu Feng choosing it as the starting pitcher. Lu Feng curled his lips and ignored Eevee's expression, but silently waited for Li Wanji to send out the Pokémon. It's Eevee. My girl heart is about to burst. Brave Eevee, carve through the enemy lines for me. Girls, after the league is over, does anyone want to adopt an Eevee together? Countless Daxia spectators, upon seeing Lu Feng's starting Pokémon was Eevee, were instantly reminded of Eevee's dashing presence at the Quartz Conference and burst into cheers. Hearing the Daxia spectators' cries, many other foreign spectators looked at the Daxia spectators with bewildered expressions, staring at them in amazement. They simply couldn't understand why these Daxia people would look so frantic upon seeing their players fielding a pet like Eevee. It was truly baffling. On the field, Li Wanji stared at the Eevee in astonishment, his expression gradually becoming dazed. If it weren't for the cheers still ringing in his ears, Li Wanji would have thought he was still asleep. He had never imagined that the Pokémon Lu Feng had sent out was actually an Eevee. After coming to his senses, he was filled with ecstasy, his body trembling. HMPH. It seems you're no better than that. You even have an unevolved Eevee. Li Wanji looked at Lu Feng with a hint of mockery, his face full of contempt. Then, he tossed his Pokéball and sent out his first Pokémon, Spitting Tiger. Spitting Tiger was incredibly sturdy, with a flaming belt around its waist. It walked upright on 2 legs, exuding a powerful and ferocious aura. Its slightly sinister face made it look like a suited thug from a movie. Seeing the beautifully sculpted Spitting Tiger, the audience in the auditorium couldn't help but feel excited and cheered for it. Spitting Tiger heard the sounds coming from all around, and a flicker of excitement and joy flashed in its eyes. It couldn't help but roar at the Eevee. The universe's #1, blazing roaring tiger? Does the Great Cold Kingdom think the entire universe belongs to them? Lu Feng carefully examined blazing roaring tiger, realizing it was no more than gym level. He shook his head slightly and gave an order to Eevee. Eevee, bubble. Eevee nodded angrily, baring its teeth at blazing roaring tiger nearby. A surge of water energy emanated from its body, spewing out transparent bubbles that quickly approached blazing roaring tiger's position. Bubble. Li Wanji watched the Eevee attack, clutching his stomach with his hands. He sneered at Lu Feng and addressed blazing roaring tiger directly. Blazing roaring tiger, next, then charge forward and perform a cross attack. Show the Great Cold Kingdom what a Great Cold Hunk is. Upon hearing this, blazing roaring tiger didn't resist the Eevee attack. Instead, it danced its arms and legs, forming a cross with its hands, and rushed towards Eevee's position. But before the scorching tiger could reach the Eevee, its living bubble attack descended, striking it directly. The scorching tiger's expression shifted, from initial disdain to a look of shock. Simultaneously, its body, like a kite with broken wings, twisted in a perfect parabola in mid-air, slamming heavily onto the battlefield. Instantly, thick smoke billowed, dust flew, and rocks flew everywhere. The entire battlefield was shrouded in a haze, obscuring the entire scene. Li Wanji watched the scene with a dreadful expression, his forehead veins bulging as a look of disbelief spread. Oh my god, this can't be real. Lu Feng stared at Li Wanji silently, his expression unchanged, appearing remarkably calm. After a long moment, when the smoke cleared and the battlefield reappeared, the scorching tiger, fighting back the excruciating pain in its chest, struggled to its feet. Now, it gazed at the Eevee with a look of fear and lingering shock. The blazing roaring tiger never expected that Eevee's seemingly ordinary attack would cause such significant damage. If it hadn't been specially trained to resist water-type attacks, the Eevee attack would likely have left it half dead. Seeing the blazing roaring tiger appear, Li Wanji's wavering heart finally settled. He quickly called out to it, "Blazing roaring tiger, DD Golden Hook." As Li Wanji finished speaking, the blazing roaring tiger brought its legs together and spread its arms to its sides, forming a cross to gather energy. Then, it lunged forward and lunged at the Eevee, swinging its fists. At that moment, a blazing flame ignited the blazing roaring tiger's body, and a flash of golden light emerged. Lu Feng observed the scene calmly, saying to the Eevee, "Eevee, use speed move to dodge, then use iron tail, Eevee." The Eevee called softly, using speed move to avoid the snarling tiger's attack. While the tiger couldn't turn, it quickly ran and leaped behind it, then used its powerful tail to deliver a powerful blow. Li Wanji watched the Eevee attack approaching the snarling tiger and called out, "Snarling tiger, get out of the way." Unfortunately, the snarling tiger, weighed down by its own gravity, had no time to dodge and could only watch as the attack fell. With a heavy thud, the snarling tiger fell to the ground, its face curled up in pain, roaring non-stop. Li Wanji watched the scene with a grim expression, frantically calling out, "Scorching tiger." Lu Feng gave Li Wanji a cold look, then whispered to Eevee, as if judging him, "The last living bubble." Booey! Eevee slowly ran and used the living bubble move, finishing off the scorching tiger on the ground. With this attack, the severely injured scorching tiger finally collapsed and lost the ability to fight. "Please send out your next Pokémon?" Lu Feng looked at Li Wanji calmly, his tone leisurely. Seeing Lu Feng's calm expression, Li Wanji clenched his fists tightly, gritted his teeth, and said, "Don't be complacent. The game has just begun. I will defeat you, Daksha." After he finished speaking, he took out his Pokéball, retrieved Scorching Tiger, and sent out his second Pokémon. Chapter 241, Wings of the Wind. The fierce arrow eagles counterattack. Flutter, the sound of flapping wings echoed, and a bird-like Pokémon appeared mid-air. Its back was red, its belly mostly gray and white with scattered red accents. Its wingtips and tail were black, and its tail feathers were streaked with yellow. A close look from a distance revealed patterns on its belly and back, shaped like balls of fire. The flaming hawk, the Hoenn bird of the Kalos region, Lu Feng muttered quietly, his expression unchanged as he studied the Pokémon before him. Judging from the aura emanating from the flaming hawk, its strength should be significantly higher than that of the blazing tiger. While not quite at the level of a quasi-king, it was very close. He pondered silently for a moment. Lu Feng calmly addressed the Eevee, "Eevee, come say hello." Use shockwave. Eevee the Eevee, with its short legs, swiftly approached the Flamahawk. It gently leaped upward, radiating a golden electric light as it unleashed its shockwave attack on the hovering Flamahawk. A dazzling flash of lightning streaked across the sky, and a shimmering golden glow emanated from the Eevee's body, poised to blast the Flamahawk. At this moment, Li Wanji suddenly realized what was happening. His face darkened, and he growled with hatred, "Despicable Daksha, Flamahawk, use Swallow Return." Flame arrow. Upon hearing this, the Flamahawk soared high into the sky, circling for a moment before closing in on the Eevee's position with lightning speed, slashing with the wind blade swirling from its wings. Swallow return. Instantly. With overwhelming force, Flaming Hawk appeared directly in front of Eevee, taking advantage of the moment it used its numbing shock to strike it directly. Eevee in an instant, Eevee's body flew backward, letting out a sharp howl of pain. However, with quick adjustments, it quickly rolled over onto all fours, landing smoothly on the ground. The spectators, perplexed by the sudden change, wondered what was happening. Why had Flaming Hawk's attack landed on Eevee when Eevee had clearly attacked first? Suddenly, the entire audience was in an uproar, turning to the nearby trainers for answers. Many of the spectators, grim-faced, offered no direct answers. Like the ordinary spectators, they too were perplexed. After all, their exposure to Pokémon civilization had been relatively recent, and how could they have grasped the vast knowledge of Pokémon so quickly? Consequently, they failed to recognize what had happened to Flaming Hawk. Feng looked at the battle scene in front of him, his face calm as usual, but a thoughtful expression flashed in his eyes, and he seemed to be thinking about something. The characteristics of the wings of swift wind, Feng thought to himself. From the performance of the fiery arrow eagle just now, Feng roughly understood its characteristics, and his mind suddenly became clear. Only the characteristics of the wings of swift wind can allow flying-type moves to be used first when physical strength is not depleted. On the other side, seeing the fiery arrow eagle succeed in one attack, Li Wanji's eyes were filled with pride, and an arrogant smile quietly rose at the corner of his mouth. Although he did not understand why the fiery arrow eagle could strike back, this move made Li Wanji successful in the battle, helping him gain a considerable advantage in the battle. He thought for a while. Li Wanji stared at the fiery arrow hawk in the sky and spoke hurriedly, deep in his voice. Fiery arrow hawk, continue using swallow return. Fiery arrow. Hearing Li Wanji's command, the fiery arrow hawk flapped its wings again, taking to the sky and swooping down at the Eevee. As it soared, sparks erupted from the cracks between its feathers, instantly transforming into a massive fireball falling from the sky, poised to crash into the Eevee. At this moment, Feng emerged from his contemplation, his brows furrowed in frustration. He calmly addressed the Eevee. Hold on, Li Wanji, upon hearing Feng's words, chuckled somewhat madly. Daksha people, why bother making such a desperate struggle? Feng remained silent, ignoring Li Wanji's trash talk and calmly directing the Eevee in battle. HMPH. I'd like to see if you can still remain calm now that your Pokémon has been knocked down. Li Wanji stared at Feng, unmoved, his heart swelled with discontent, a sudden surge of unquenchable rage. At that moment, Flaming Hawk had already struck Eevee with a powerful impact, its wings swirling with wind blades. Under the immense force, Eevee inevitably took a few steps back, but it remained unscathed. Thanks to its defensive moves, Eevee successfully withstood Flaming Hawk's attack, its aura remaining unchanged. Seeing Eevee's successful defense, Li Wanji was about to have Flaming Hawk use Swallow Return to launch another attack on Eevee. But before he could speak, Feng's voice suddenly rang out. Eevee, take this opportunity to jump onto Flaming Hawk and unleash your maximum power. Shock. Hearing Feng's words, Eevee quickly used the power of its limbs to lightly leap from the ground, leaping onto Flaming Hawk like a cheetah. And, the moment the Eevee landed, Li Wanji unleashed his full-strength numbing shock. Swish, swish, instantly, accompanied by a hissing electric shock, a golden electric current surged through Flaming Hawk's body, completely enveloping it. Under the influence of this current, Flaming Hawk's expression was filled with pain, as if it had suffered considerable damage. It wasn't long before Flaming Hawk's body gave way and plummeted from the sky. Because it happened so quickly, Li Wanji had no time to react, let alone command Flaming Hawk. By the time he came to his senses, Flaming Hawk had already crashed to the ground, its body entwined with shimmering arcs of electricity, struggling and screaming, as if paralyzed. Flaming Hawk, use Feather Perch, Li Wanji cried anxiously. But Feng gave Flaming Hawk no chance, using his Eevee's high-speed stars in quick succession, interrupting Flaming Hawk's movements and inflicting heavy damage. A minute later, after consuming 2 consecutive high-speed stars from Eevee, Flaming Hawk finally collapsed, losing its last remaining fighting ability. The audience in the stands watched the scene, somewhat bewildered, and for a moment, at a loss for words. Having seen Flaming Hawk rely on its special ability to attack first, they had assumed Lu Feng's Eevee was doomed. They hadn't expected the final outcome to be this. Suddenly, everyone fell silent, and the entire 11th area was utterly still. Chapter 242, Team Dahan's Thoughts, Tianji's Horse Racing. A moment later, at the referee's urging, Li Wanji retracted his Flamahawk and dispatched his most powerful Pokémon. A near-king level Infernape appeared on the battlefield, flames blazing behind it and a resounding neigh. Infernape, please, Li Wanji said, his expression heavy as he gazed at Infernape, taking a deep breath. Infernape stamped its front hooves on the ground, raised its head high, and nodded to Li Wanji. Infernape, brilliant charge. Infernape's entire body was engulfed in blazing flames, its blazing mane gleaming brightly in the sunlight as it charged towards the nearby Eevee. In an instant, with the momentum of a galloping horse, shrouded in blazing flames, Infernape approached the Eevee at lightning speed. Lu Feng glanced at Infernape briefly, then couldn't help but scrutinize Li Wanji for a moment longer. Judging from the Pokémon he had shown, Lu Feng knew clearly that Li Wanji seemed to be a fire-type trainer. This type of trainer has advantages when training Pokémon, but their limited Pokémon attributes also make them vulnerable to attack from opponents. After a moment's thought, Lu Feng looked up at Eevee and said calmly, Eevee, dig. At the critical moment, Eevee used its dig move, narrowly avoiding the galloping Infernape and dodging the flare charge. Seeing Eevee disappear from sight, Infernape's eyes showed a look of bewilderment. It paced back and forth nervously where Eevee had been standing, scanning its surroundings for any sign of Eevee. Seeing this, Li Wanji also fell into deep thought, silently pondering a countermeasure. Not long after, as if a flash of inspiration struck him, Li Wanji suddenly raised his head and shouted to Infernape, Infernape, use your Inferno move. Transform the entire battlefield into a sea of fire. A smile crossed Li Wanji's eyes as he glanced provocatively at Lu Feng. While he couldn't find the Eevee underground, he could force it out by altering the battlefield's environment. Infernape raised its head and roared, its body erupting in searing flames, instantly engulfing the entire arena in flames. The scorching flames burned fiercely, baking the flat ground with scorching heat. Under the influence of the Inferno move, the entire battlefield gradually transformed into a sea of fire, permeating the air with a terrifying heat that made the spectators in the surrounding stands sweat profusely. Imagine how intense the temperature on the battlefield must have been at that moment. Lu Feng stared across at Li Wanji with a look of deep astonishment. He hadn't expected Li Wanji to come up with such a plan, and couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Eevee, maximum power repay, Lu Feng said quickly after a moment's thought. He knew that if the Sea of Fire continued to form, it would be detrimental to Eevee, so he had to defeat Li Wanji's Infernape quickly. Instantly, the ground beneath Infernape began to bulge. Before it could react, Eevee broke through the ground, bursting out from under Infernape, unleashing its ultimate repay. Under the impact of the repay, Infernape suffered a severe blow to the abdomen, letting out a shrill cry and falling heavily to the ground, its limbs curled up. Li Wanji looked at the stricken Infernape with a pale face, his lips slightly moving as if he wanted to say something. Lu Feng calmly looked at him, then had Eevee use self-boost to boost itself, and with a single iron tail move, he instantly destroyed the low-health Infernape. As Infernape closed its eyes and fell into unconsciousness, Li Manqi's name on the big screen faded to gray. Li Manqi watched in disbelief, his spirits fading. If it weren't for the referee's repeated reminders and the arrival of another member of Team Dahan, Li Manqi didn't know how much longer he would have remained in the arena. Watching Li Manqi's retreating form, Lu Feng chuckled softly but said nothing. Then, he turned his gaze to the new member of Team Dahan, observing him silently for a moment. Perhaps out of consideration for the overall situation, the second member of Team Dahan sent to challenge the ring wasn't very skilled, barely at the level of a gym novice. Eevee quickly dispatched all three of his Pokémon, disqualifying him from the ring. Is he going to give up the ring match and rely on the next match to win? Lu Feng touched his nose, thinking silently. Sure enough, it was. As Lu Feng waited for the third member of the Great Cold Team to take the stage, his strength still comparable to the previous one, he watched the scene unfold before his eyes, confirming the Great Cold Team's plan. Facing the best challenger, Lu Feng continued to command his Eevee, securing victory in the arena match with a brutal, seamless victory. During the intermission, Lu Feng returned to the Great Xia Kingdom's Players' Lounge and shared his conjecture with several teammates. Is the Great Cold Team trying to play the game of Tianji's horse race? Ran Qiangsha asked quietly after hearing Lu Feng's reminder. How should we plan the upcoming individual matches? To prevent any unexpected events, I think we should let Qiangsha participate in the first individual match. With Qiangsha's strength, winning an individual match shouldn't be difficult. Wu Feng was silent for a moment, then suddenly raised his head and said, as for the final individual match, it's safer to let Lu Feng take the field. Everyone nodded silently at Wu Feng's words, approving of the current plan. 10 minutes later, the second round of individual matches began. Ran Qiangsha glanced around at everyone and walked directly to the battlefield. Seeing the Great Hoenn team send out their vice-captain, Yu Shijin, only half a point weaker than Li Manqi, her eyes flickered slightly. She understood that the Great Hoenn team's plan was just as they had imagined, to win this match through a Tianji horse racing strategy. Then, without a moment's hesitation, Ran Qiangsha sent out the big mouth, whom she had been training for some time. Yu Shijin, in turn, sent out a fire camel, hoping to leverage his stat advantage to defeat Ran Qiangsha directly. Due to the stat restraint, the two teams' strengths were roughly equal, both at the gym level. As a result, Ran Qiangsha's match wasn't going smoothly. Although Big Mouth dealt considerable damage to the fire camel with dark-type moves like Bite and Rush, draining much of its energy, it was still overwhelmed by the fire camel's flaming fire attack when it wasn't paying attention. The Hoenn team's leader and players, closely watching the match, saw the scene with knowing smiles on their faces. They couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and cheer for Ryu Shijin. The Hoenn spectators in the surrounding stands suddenly felt a complex mix of emotions, falling into silence, and couldn't help but worry for Ran Qiangsha. At the referee's signal, Ran Qiangsha took a deep breath and sent out her second Pokémon. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 243, Victory, 5-0 Shaved Hoenn Team. Ran Qiangsha's second Pokémon was a water-type Seabream. Aside from the two Dragonites, it was her team's strongest Pokémon, roughly at the peak of its gym's power. Facing the Charizard, which had already lost most of its strength, Seabream didn't stand a chance. Its azure eyes flickered, its long, azure hair drooping slightly as it unleashed its signature move, Aria of the Bubbles. Accompanied by the melodious melody, a surge of water-type energy instantly descended upon the Charizard. Already drained of most of its strength, the Charizard, under the pressure of the quadruple weak water, plummeted to the ground, unable to fight. Seeing this sudden change, the previously delighted members of Team Hoenn suddenly froze, their faces frozen as if their necks were being pinched, and they remained speechless for a long time. Then, Yu Shijin retracted his Charizard, and after a brief moment of reflection, he dispatched an electric spider of the same level as Seabream. As soon as the electric spider appeared, it fixed its 6 compound eyes on the sea lion, spitting out electrified webs, as if it were its prey. But the sea lion was no pushover. It swung its slender body, its broad white palms condensing streams of water energy, and pounced on the electric spider with lightning speed. A blast of water. In an instant, the torrent of water sent the electric spider flying backward, crashing directly into the surrounding wall. Ran Qiangsha watched the electric spider suffer, and with unwavering command, the sea lion unleashed a spurt of boiling water, which landed directly on the electric spider, burning it. Yu Shijin, observing the suffering electric spider, attempted to swap out his Pokémon, but before he could act, the sea lion attacked again, hurling a torrent of water down upon it. Water Cannon. The electric spider took the damage from the water cannon attack without resistance, and under the influence of the burn status, it immediately drained all its strength and fell into coma. A few minutes later, a pale-faced Yu Shijin retracted the electric spider, his body trembling slightly, and sent out his third Pokémon. With a flash of red light from the Pokéball, a quasi-king-level Parasaurolophus appeared. Judging by the strength of this Parasaurolophus, it must be Yu Shijin's trump card. If he could defeat the Parasaurolophus in front of him, his remaining Pokémon would be no problem. But before Ran Qiangsha could give any orders, Yu Shijin's Parasaurolophus appeared with a light step directly in front of the sea lion. Using all its strength, using its retractable arms, it launched a full-force attack at the sea lion. Explosive punch. Bang! Bang! A painful sound echoed, and the sea lion fell backward, its face twisted into a knot, curling up in pain, as if it had suffered considerable damage. At the same time, a mysterious poisoning condition had inexplicably appeared on Hoenn's body. This worsened the already severely damaged Hoenn's condition, further weakening it. Rankai-Anxia's face changed drastically, and she stared at Hoenn's changes with a look of deep worry. "What's going on?" Chuksa asked in bewilderment in the Great Xia Kingdom's players' lounge. "Why is Hoenn poisoned?" The other teammates also stared at the scene in astonishment, completely clueless. This is the spore ability. It causes opponents to randomly enter a state of poison, paralysis, or sleep after coming into contact with a Pokémon with this ability. Feng explained to the bewildered crowd. "I just didn't expect Kai-Anxia to be so unlucky as to trigger a negative state." Everyone's faces lit up with sudden realization as they looked at Rankai-Anxia on the battlefield with a hint of worry. Feng noticed their reactions and shook his head, sighing softly. In his view, the Parasaurolophus's spore-like properties alone made everyone feel formidable. If they encountered a Parasaurolophus with the poison-healing properties of its poisonous orb, wouldn't they be utterly devastated? As Feng and the others were conversing, the situation on the battlefield shifted rapidly. Under Rankai-Anxia's command, the sea lion launched a counterattack, attempting to slow the Parasaurolophus's attack with its frozen wind ability, blasting icy air at the Parasaurolophus. However, this was to no avail. Like a kangaroo, the Parasaurolophus leaped around on its powerful legs, avoiding the frozen wind's damage and attacking with its energy balls. As time passed, the sea lion finally succumbed to the poison. Although it managed to recover some strength with its draining kiss, it was ultimately a drop in the bucket. Rankai-Anxia remained silent for a moment, then retrieved the sea lion from its Pokéball and immediately dispatched one of its two strongest forces, Dragonite. After dispatching Dragonite, Rankai-Anxia learned her lesson and refused to let Dragonite near Parasaurolophus. While she didn't know how the sea lion became poisoned, she knew it must have been related to contact with a Parasaurolophus. Under her command, Dragonite soared into the sky and suddenly unleashed a blizzard on the battlefield. Instantly, a fierce blizzard descended from the sky, sweeping across the entire battlefield, inflicting considerable damage on the Parasaurolophus. Unable to attack at close range, the Parasaurolophus, under Yu Shijin's command, could only unleash ranged attacks, attempting to pull Dragonite down from the sky. However, Dragonite's agile dodging shattered Yu Shijin's plan. He could only allow the blizzard to steadily erode the Parasaurolophus's strength, even causing it to freeze. Seeing the Parasaurolophus frozen, Rankai-Anxia unleashed Dragonite's full-throttle flame blaster. 3 minutes later, Yu Shijin's Parasaurolophus collapsed. He gazed at Rankai-Anxia with a pale face, a look of pessimism. Seeing this, the members of Team Hoenn shared Yu Shijin's expression, closing their eyes in despair. As Yu Shijin's teammates, they knew Parasaurolophus was his strongest Pokémon, and the remaining 3 Pokémon were no match for Dragonite. Sure enough, the ensuing match played out as they'd anticipated. Rankai-Anxia's Dragonite, with its domineering power, effortlessly pierced through his remaining Ursa, Grunt, and Ironclad. Yu Shijin walked off the field, dazed, back to the Hoenn team's lounge. Suddenly, the second individual match began. To prevent a loss, Team Hoenn sent out Li Man-Ki again, hoping he could secure this crucial victory. But before Li Man-Ki could even leave the lounge, he suddenly stopped, his body trembling. Feng's portrait reappeared on the big screen. The already pessimistic Team Hoenn, staring at the image, sank into deep despair. "Lillian, why are you so cruel? You don't even give me a chance? Where's the promise of a country of etiquette?" Everyone on the Hoenn team had complicated expressions and thought with melancholy. Judging from the performance in the ring match, Li Wanji was definitely not a match for Feng, which made the Hoenn team hesitate. After a brief thought, the Hoenn team gave up this game, wanting to preserve their strength to compete for a spot on the next resurrection match. Therefore, the Daxia team directly defeated the Hoenn team with a score of 5-0, calmly accepting the victory. Many Daxia spectators looked at this scene with excitement, and cheers continued to echo throughout the entire area of the 11th area. Chapter 244 Finals Qualifiers confirmed. May 7th, Tuesday. Since the Blue Star region hadn't yet joined the Pokémon League, there were no Joys or Pokémon Centers. Therefore, facing injuries sustained from the previous day's competition, many teams could only rely on League-provided medicine or the use of healing skills from Pokémon. To ensure relative fairness, the Nations League was suspended for a day, allowing the teams to recover from their injuries. This demonstrates the wisdom of having a Pokémon acting as a nurse. May 8, Wednesday. After a day of rest, many severely injured Pokémon gradually recovered, and the Nations League resumed. As the Cheyenne Arena's announcements began, the victorious teams from the previous match gathered in their respective areas to redraw their opponents. As the many great Xia players watched them go, Feng, feeling uneasy, silently made his way to the draw. About 20 minutes passed. Feng walked back from the drawing area, his expression expressionless, neither happy nor sad, leaving the situation somewhat puzzling. President Wu, what was the situation with the draw this time? Did we face Pharaoh, Windmill, Saudi Arabia, or Annan? Jinren scratched his head, looking at Feng with a curious expression, unable to resist asking. Or were we lucky enough to get a bye and directly secure a spot on the main tournament? The others, upon hearing Jinren's words, looked puzzled, their minds racing. Feng's calm demeanor shifted slightly upon hearing his predecessor's words. He glanced at him unpleasantly, sighing slightly. What are you thinking? Our great Xia team earned their spot based on our own strength. This time, we're facing Annan, and the match is at 1 p.m. Get ready. As for those opportunistic buys, our ancestors had a saying, we won't accept food given out of pity. Upon hearing this, the corners of the great Xia trainers' mouths twitched, and they glanced at him with a strange look. Feng saw the strange expressions on everyone's faces and immediately understood their thoughts. Blushing, he shouted, what are you looking at? Am I wrong? Feng was silent for a moment, then suddenly raised his head and said in a deep voice, Chairman Wu, this is the first time I've heard someone describe a dark face in such a refreshing and righteous way. The others, unable to contain themselves, burst into laughter, the atmosphere becoming somewhat out of control. Feng's face darkened, choking on his words. His lips moved slightly, but no words came out. After a long pause, Feng urged everyone not to take it lightly and left without looking back. Through Feng's information, everyone knew that the buy had been accidentally obtained by the Windmill Nation. As for whether there was any insider information, Feng and the others were unaware. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, it was 10 a.m. The first match of the day, Pharaoh Nation vs Saudi Arabia, officially began. The order of the matches they were drawn was the arena, team, and individual competitions. As the big screen displayed the information about the two countries' players, the referee's crisp whistle blew. As the defending team, the Pharaohs sent their captain, armed with a top-tier gym-class death coffin, to defeat two attackers from the Saudi oil nation. Seeing the death coffin's depleted energy, the third attacker sent out an Alalan Raichu, leveraging its stat advantage to effortlessly defeat the death coffin. Furthermore, the Alalan Raichu's psychic stat drained much of the Pharaoh's captain's Wandering Eidolon stamina, giving his Houndoom a significant advantage in defeating the Wandering Eidolon. Perhaps fearing a setback, the Pharaoh's captain sent out his ace, a near-king level clay titan. Before the attackers could react, he executed a powerful 1-2 combo, securing 3 points for the Pharaohs in the first round. Then, seeing the situation becoming dire, the Saudi oil nation quickly sent its captain and a strong player onto the court. With seamless teamwork, they secured 2 points in the first team match. The Pharaoh team, seeing the 3-2 score displayed on the big screen, fell silent for a moment. When the second team match began, the Pharaoh team employed their long-hidden sandstorm strategy, centering a Hippoman complemented by Raiden, to successfully defeat the Saudi oil team. Ultimately, with a commanding 5-2 advantage, the Pharaohs secured their first spot on the main competition. At 1 p.m., after a short half-hour break, the match between Daksha and Annan began. The format consisted of a tournament, individual competition, and team competition. After a systematic draw, Annan was selected as the defending team, while Daksha was the attacking team. Perhaps inspired by the Pharaohs' success, Annan followed suit, sending its own captain, hoping to secure victory in the tournament. After a brief discussion, the Great Xia team sent out substitutes Chuksu and Xiang Yijin, along with regular member Zhang Liuer. After a fierce battle, Chuksu, using her 3 Pokémon, replaced the Annan captain's starting Pokémon, Steelix, and successfully drained some of the stamina of his second Pokémon, Magnetron. Xiang Yijin then replaced his opponent's second Pokémon with 3 of his own, severely damaging his final Pokémon, Magnetron. Zhang Liuer, seeing this, could only dejectedly walk onto the battlefield. Without much effort, he used his Infernape to launch a powerful attack and win the first round. Meanwhile, although two challengers from Hoenn took the stage, attempting to regain their place in the ring, they were easily repelled by Jiang Liuer's Infernape. And then, the Great Xia team fielded Zhang Dingding and Jin Ren in the individual competition, each relying on their formidable strength and employing their star players to win both individual matches. Compared to the formidable strength of the Great Hoenn, the Hoenn threat was relatively minor. As a result, the entire competition was already dominated before Lu Feng and Ran Qiangsha even took the field. With a resounding 5-0 victory, the Great Xia team became the third team from Region 11 to advance to the main competition. As for the final spot in Region 11, it was secured by the powerful Great Hoenn team, one of the 5 teams, in a fierce battle. With the final spot secured, the 4 spots for Region 11 in the main competition were officially settled. Chapter 245, Easy Victory. Entering the top 32. May 12th, International Nurses Day, the main competition of the Nations League slowly began. After several days of competition, the preliminaries in 16 regions concluded, and the main competition officially began. With the competition approaching, Wu Feng led the Great Xia team to the Xianyun Arena. With the staff's arrangement, Wu Feng obtained a new draw number, which determined the Great Xia team's opponent for the first round of the main competition. Lu Feng and others waited silently in the players' lounge for Wu Feng's return. After about half an hour, Wu Feng returned to the players' lounge with a look of joy and announced the opponent he had drawn. Perhaps this time, Great Xia's luck had improved, as they had directly drawn the Mexican team. Upon seeing the opponent list confirmed, the Great Xia staff in charge of logistics quickly retrieved the relevant information they had gathered over the past few days and laid out all the information on the Mexican team for everyone to see. Everyone briefly glanced at the Mexican intelligence. Upon seeing that their strongest captain was only at the mid-level of a gym, and that they had earned their spot on the main tournament via a bye, all the contestants, save Lu Feng, breathed a sigh of relief, their faces beaming. Although Mexico's strength isn't comparable to ours, I urge everyone not to let their guard down. A sudden setback would be embarrassing, Wu Feng warned, noticing the relaxed crowd. While he also believed that Great Xia could prevail against a powerful Mexican nation, he still offered a routine reminder. President Wu, don't worry, Zhang Dingding said, grinning nonchalantly. With Mexico's strength, there's no need for Lu Feng and Qiangsha to intervene. We can handle it, the others echoed Zhang Dingding's words, clamoring to speak up. Wu Feng, after a moment's reflection, agreeing with his point, and said nothing more. Time slowly slipped by, and in a flash, it was time for the match to begin. As the match announcement popped up on the giant screen in the main venue, the match between Daxia and Mexico officially began. The competition consisted of individual, team, and arena matches. Daxia's starting player was substitute Pei Huan, while Mexico's trainer was Alfonso. As the referee read out the rules, a crisp whistle sounded, signaling the start of the match. Pei Huan fielded his long-trained Ninetales, while Alfonso fielded a Swampert. The difference in power between the two teams wasn't significant, both at the early stages of their gyms. Facing a disadvantageous statistic, Pei Huan commanded Ninetales to attack first. Before Alfonso could react, he unleashed his Sunny Day move, blanketing the entire arena in a sunny atmosphere. Seeing the environment shift in Ninetales' favor, Alfonso's expression changed slightly. He quickly commanded Swamplords to use Raindrop, hoping to gain a greater advantage by summoning rain and wresting control of the weather with Ninetales. For a moment, the entire battlefield was engulfed in a clash between sunny and rainy weather, the situation becoming extremely tense. The entire process lasted about 10 minutes. Finally, Ninetale, amplified by the charcoal it carried, successfully seized control of the weather. Seeing its battle for control lost, Alfonso quickly directed the Swamp King to unleash a stream of murky water towards Ninetale, attempting to inflict significant damage while it was still unable to react. Muddy Stream. Pei Huan glanced at the sweeping muddy stream and calmly directed Ninetale to leap and dodge, retaliating with his Inferno skill. Under his command, Ninetale's bright red eyes gleamed, and it gently leaped up, its 9 long tails naturally drooping, directly avoiding the muddy stream's attack. Simultaneously, using its evasive running, Ninetale appeared near the Swamp King, a fiery crimson flame erupting from its body, instantly engulfing the slow-moving Swamp King. Inferno. Powered by the sunny weather and amplified by the charcoal, The Inferno skill dealt a devastating blow to the Swamp King. Engulfed in flames, Swamp Lord let out a painful whine, its body swaying violently, seemingly on the verge of collapse. Hoenn, observing this, showed no mercy, instead using Ninetales' magical power to directly consume the now depleted Swamp Lord. Alfonso's right hand trembled slightly upon seeing the severely injured Swamp Lord. After a long silence, he dispatched his second Pokémon, also a gym-level Fortis. However, facing its stat disadvantage, its quadruple weakness to fire, and the added bonuses of the weather and Ninetales' equipment, Fortis offered little resistance. It held out for only a few minutes before being defeated by Ninetales' jet of fire. Meanwhile, Alfonso considered having Fortis use a self-destruct attack, severely damaging Hoenn's Ninetales. Unfortunately, Hoenn seemed to know his intentions and gave it no chance, allowing Ninetales to unleash its full-strength jet of fire to secure victory. Time ticked by, and half an hour passed. With Alfonso's last Pokémon incapacitated, Hoenn used Ninetales to defeat 6 opponents, securing a point for the Great Xia Kingdom in the first individual competition. Later, after a series of setbacks, Great Xia's second-place player, Lin Bei, also defeated Mexico's Garcia at the cost of 2 Pokémon. As for the remaining 2 team competitions, although Feng didn't make a move, he did offer some brief advice to the Great Xia players after a moment's deliberation. With Feng's guidance, Tang Sei and Jin Ren, the Great Xia team participants, each used their own Pokémon to complete the Sunny Day and Relay team lineups, securing victories in both competitions before the astonished gazes of the Mexican team. With the conclusion of the team competition, the Great Xia team won the first round of the main competition with a score of 6-0, advancing to the round of 32. Countless Great Xia spectators witnessed this scene and burst into applause, cheering for the Great Xia team's victory, leaving the entire main venue in a state of restless activity. Chapter 246 Feng, it should be reasonable to shake out a time roar, right? The sky was a clear blue. 3 days had passed since the Great Xia Kingdom entered the round of 32. After a round of intense competition, the top 32 of the Nations League had finally been decided. After several days of waiting, Feng and the others finally learned which country's representative team they would be facing in their next match. According to the league organizing committee, their next opponent would be the Baoxiang Kingdom in South Asia. Upon hearing this news, the people of the Great Xia Kingdom couldn't help but frown, a subtle hint of worry on their faces. At this moment, Feng gathered all the Great Xia players in a quiet meeting room in the players' village to discuss a new strategy for facing the Baoxiang Kingdom team. Seeing everyone present, Feng said solemnly, "I'm sure everyone knows who our opponent will be in the next match. Here's some information about the opponent. You can take a look." Upon hearing this, the Great Xia contestants quickly picked up the information on the table and quietly browsed through it. As time passed, everyone's faces gradually became more gloomy. From the information they had gathered, they had a rough idea of the strength of the Hawkage Kingdom, which was vastly superior to any other team they had encountered. Hawkage Kingdom not only boasted 2 trainers at the quasi-prodigy level, but one of them had unexpectedly awakened a psychic ability, allowing his Pokémon to temporarily reach near prodigy levels. Meanwhile, several other Hawkage trainers, through seemingly unforeseen circumstances, had become top-tier gym-level trainers. Seeing everyone put down their documents and fall silent, Feng suddenly spoke, "All right. Everyone has seen the relevant information, so feel free to share your thoughts, President. With our current strength, except for Feng and Chinatsu, who can certainly defeat the 2 Hawkage Kingdom quasi-prodigies, the rest of us wouldn't stand a chance against them," Zhang Lior said, frowning after a moment's thought. "If the lineup isn't arranged properly, we might even be defeated by them in a Tianji horse race." Upon hearing this, everyone in the conference room wore wry smiles, their expressions solemn. Feng pondered silently for a moment, then looked at the crowd around him and said slowly, "Since we can't determine their match order, why not let me continue to participate in the arena and individual competitions? That way, I have more room for error." Feng and the others were silent for a moment, carefully considering Feng's words, and finally nodded firmly, knowing that this might be the best option. After a brief discussion, everyone left the conference room and began to prepare for the upcoming competition. May 16th, Thursday 2 p.m. sharp. The 32-16 finals officially began. After a few days of rest and recuperation, the Great Xia team, refreshed, arrived at the Xianyun Arena early. As new match information appeared on the arena's electronic screen, the flags of Daxia and Baoxiang slowly rose, and the order of the matches was promptly announced: individual competition, team competition, and ring competition. Immediately afterwards, the list of players for the first individual match was announced, and the two players' photos appeared on the electronic screen: Daxia Lu Feng vs Baoxiang Amir. Upon seeing the familiar figure on the electronic screen, the Daxia spectators in attendance erupted in cheers, their expressions quite excited. Daxia must win. Beat the third brother, go, boss Lu Feng. Sweep the third brother like a madman. Lu Feng noticed the cheers around him, raised his right hand to signal, and silently walked towards the battle arena. Seeing Lu Feng approach, members of many national teams turned their gazes to him, observing him curiously. After all, as Blue Star Continent's most celebrated trainer, having completed numerous legendary quests, Lu Feng was undoubtedly one of the top few, naturally attracting considerable attention. Lu Feng waited for a few minutes on the battlefield. Amir, the player from Baoxiang Kingdom, also arrived. Seeing Lu Feng's calm expression, Amir's forehead was covered with sweat, and his expression was extremely nervous. According to Baoxiang Kingdom's strategy, after comparing the strength of both teams, they decided to send two substitutes to compete in the individual matches. This was to eliminate Lu Feng as an uncertainty factor. If they could face Lu Feng in the first match, they would naturally substitute strong players in the second match, win the corresponding match, and strive for victory in the two-team matches to avoid the restrictions of the tournament and secure a spot to advance. Sure enough, the Daxia Kingdom team indeed sent Lu Feng to compete in the first individual match. Seeing this, the Baoxiang Kingdom team's faces lit up with joy, a kind of excitement at the prospect of victory. After a moment of reflection, Lu Feng sent out his Tajikis, intending to use this match to train his Pokémon and quickly bring it to the level of a quasi-king. Amir breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Lu Feng's starting Pokémon, a mere Tajikis, not yet a quasi-premier. His tense body relaxed slightly. While his strength wasn't particularly strong, facing a top-level Tajikis, he shouldn't be outmatched 6-1. Amir's frown softened as he thought to himself. Then, Amir sent out his first Pokémon, a Tajikis, which was considered quite strong for the gym. Seeing Tajikis enter the fray, Lu Feng whispered, without even looking up, Tajikis, Pokus. Tajikis responded softly, radiating sharp blades of air from its white wings and slashing fiercely towards Tajikis. Air slash. Amir sensed the power within the air slash and quickly instructed Tajikis to dodge, avoiding the blow. With a low growl, Tajikis used its powerful legs to repeatedly leap away, gathering a ball of poisonous venom from its right hand and flinging it at Tajikis's position. Venom blast. Leveraging its flight advantage, Tajikis flapped its wide wings, easily dodging the venom attack and counterattacking with a series of air slashes at Toxoplasma. The situation reached a stalemate, lasting approximately 5 or 6 minutes. Finally, Toxoplasma couldn't dodge, allowing Tajikis's air slash to successfully connect, triggering a flinch. Taking advantage of the flinch, Tajikis continued to use air slashes, relentlessly pursuing Toxoplasma, quickly knocking it unconscious. Amir sighed, silently retracted his Toxoplasma, and sent out his next Pokémon. Amir's second Pokémon was a builder, roughly at the level of a gym novice. Lu Feng glanced at the builder, his eyes darkening as he said calmly, Tajikis, wave your finger. As soon as he finished speaking, Tajikis unleashed a wave of his own. In an instant, the attack was complete. Powerful energy erupted from Tajikis's body. Under the influence of an unknown force, time began to distort around the entire main venue, unleashing its most intense attack on the nearby builder. Time roared. Boom. Boom. A single, violent sound echoed, and the entire Hoenn arena was ablaze with a brilliant light, blinding everyone to the situation. When the light dissipated, the builder on the battlefield had already fallen unconscious. Holy crap! What kind of skill is this that has such a powerful effect? Wow, is this really a skill you can perform with a wave of your finger? GM, I'm reporting someone for cheating. That's just outrageous. Even the opponent's famous cheater, Senjen, is stunned. This scene is hilarious. Countless spectators, stunned, gazed at the fallen builder, chattering and expressing disbelief. Not only them, but even Lu Feng was stunned for a long moment, his expression utterly dazed. Does it really make sense to use Dialga's time roar with a flick of the finger? Lu Feng thought to himself. Oh, that was his Tajikis doing it. That's fine then. 3. After all, with Tajikas's super luck and divine grace, it's only natural for him to use Time Roar, right? Amir wiped his sweat with a dismal expression and shakily took out his next Pokeball, his expression utterly unnatural. Chapter 247, Sub-Sky/. Everyone was shocked. A moment later, accompanied by a flash of red light, Amir's third Pokemon, Gorilla, appeared. Judging from its aura, it had only recently reached the gym level. Lu Feng glanced at it silently, then said to Tajikus, "Tajikus, keep using finger swing." Pock. Tajikus, upon hearing this, spread its white wings, soared into the sky, and used finger swing again. In an instant, the space around Gorilla, under the influence of a powerful force, began to tear apart, shattering it piece by piece. While Gorilla and countless spectators remained silent, the attack dealt Gorilla immense damage. Sub-aerial slash. Bang, bang. A brutal howl echoed, and Gorilla's body was involuntarily flung far away, slamming heavily to the ground. Tajikus, watching the fallen Gorilla, remembered Lu Feng's instructions and instinctively launched another air slash, slashing Gorilla with a sharp blade of air. The entire process was extremely brief. In just a moment, the strange force lost its combat capability. Holy crap! What kind of skill is this? Why haven't I seen it before? It's outrageous, tearing space? A Tajikus can do that? You must be kidding. These are all basic operations for Lu Feng's Pokemon. After all, didn't they just stop time for a while? Now it's just tearing space. It makes perfect sense. Bullshit, I have a Tajikus too. Why can't my Tajikus perform such a skill? Could it be that Lu Feng's Tajikus is secretly learning it? Brother, you can report this to them in real name. A well-known trainer actually let his Tajikus commit crimes during the implementation of the double reduction policy. Manually funny JPG. All the audience in the main venue looked at the Tajikus in mid-air with strange expressions, their eyes filled with horror, and they were stunned for a long time. Lu Feng glanced at the battleground, his pupils involuntarily constricting, his mouth slightly widened, his eyes filled with surprise. He'd only let Tajikus try on a whim, but he'd never expected it to unleash the Sinnoh Dragon's signature moves in quick succession. This was outrageous. Did he see how Amir, on the other side, was completely horrified by this sight? At the referee's reminder, Amir, with a vacant look in his eyes, retracted his super strength and released his next Pokemon. This time, Lu Feng didn't let Tajikus use Finger Wave again, fearing that even the alpaca's punishment gravel might unleash itself, causing chaos throughout the venue. So, Lu Feng obediently directed Tajikus to continue using Air Slash. As time passed, Amir's Pokemon fell one after another, and the first individual match gradually drew to a close. Finally, all of Amir's Pokemon were incapacitated, marking Lu Feng's victory in the first individual match. Countless spectators stared at Tajikus in mid-air with complex expressions, their faces filled with deep agitation. It was the first time they had witnessed Tajikus's skillful play style. Relying solely on a single air slash, leveraging its European attributes while constantly triggering flinch, who could possibly withstand that? So much so that, shortly after the league concluded, Tajipi's Pokemon Egg became another popular choice after EV. Elsewhere, with Lu Feng and Amir gone, the second individual match began. After much deliberation, the Great Xia Kingdom decided to send Rankai-Angsha to prevent the Baoxiang Kingdom's plan from succeeding. As for the Baoxiang Kingdom's player, it was Madhavan, one of their two Quasi-Kings. While he wasn't the Esper, his strength was equally formidable. At the start of the match, Rankai-Angsha sent Outer Sea Lion, while Madhavan unleashed a flying kick. Judging from the aura emanating from both Pokemon, both were roughly on par with the Quasi-Kings, with a gap not too far. Rankai-Angsha pondered for a moment before commanding Hiron to use Psychic Power, attacking Slipper. Using his Psychic Power, Slipper, despite his comparable strength, dodged repeatedly before being struck by Psychic Power. He was quickly seized by the power, unable to break free and ultimately losing his ability to fight. Madhavan, observing this, frowned slightly and released his second Pokemon. The next moment, a near-King-level Zapman appeared. Leveraging its superior stats and power, Zapman continuously unleashed 100,000 volts, bathing the entire battlefield in lightning, leaving Hiron with nowhere to hide. Although Rankai-Angsha attempted to recall Zapman and replace it with a new Pokemon, Madhavan gave him no chance, instead commanding Zapman to charge forward with Thunder Punch. A few minutes later, Hoenn, under Zapman's relentless attacks, collapsed to the ground, losing its last resistance. Then, Rankai unleashed a long-eared rabbit, engaging in a fierce clash with Matavan's electric beasts, ultimately leaving both incapacitated. At 3 p.m., an hour into the match, Rankai fought diligently, her two Dragonites, despite suffering heavy injuries, to decisively defeat Matavan's near King Heracris. This result surprised the spectators and both teams. Seeing the plan go awry, the Baoxiang Kingdom players stopped holding back and unleashed their full strength. In the ensuing team match, they defeated several members of the Daxia Kingdom. At this point, the Daxia Kingdom and Baoxiang Kingdom were tied at 2-4, reaching match point. Lu Feng glanced at the Baoxiang Kingdom players calmly and slowly made his way toward the battleground. Baoxiang Kingdom remained silent for a moment, sending out two of their best players, hoping to weaken Lu Feng and create a chance for their ace, Irani. Faced with the Baoxiang Kingdom's wishful thinking, Lu Feng curled his lips in disdain and unleashed Garchomp. After this period of training, Garchomp gradually mastered ancient martial arts sword techniques, as well as some Western knight swordsmanship. Under Lu Feng's guidance, he developed his own unique fighting style. The two Baoxiang Kingdom players were roughly between gym level and Quasi King, a stark difference from Garchomp's. Upon seeing the two Baoxiang Kingdom players take the field first, Garchomp wasted no time and quickly defeated them all. The entire process was fluid and seamless, a delight to watch. Seeing this, Irani shook his head slightly and headed straight to the battleground, ready to engage Lu Feng in a do-or-die showdown. At this moment, victory in the ring match was crucial for both teams. Whoever won would secure a spot on the top 16 and advance in the competition. Chapter 248 Defeat Irani. Enter the top 16. Irani stepped onto the battlefield, looked at the defiant Garchomp, and entered a state of contemplation. After thinking silently for a few minutes, Irani suddenly made a decision. He took a deep breath and took out a red and white Pokeball from the Pokeball belt hanging around his waist. The next moment, a Quasi-King level Cherrim appeared. Cherrim is a humanoid Pokemon. The upper part of its head, legs, and lips are bright red, covered with light yellow spots. The rest of its body is white. As soon as Cherrim came on the stage, it danced gracefully, using the classical yoga postures of the Kingdom of the Elephant, entering a meditative state, taking the opportunity to increase its strength. Lu Feng glanced at Irani indifferently, his eyes as calm as water, and did not try to stop Cherrim's actions. Seeing that Cherrim's status had been enhanced, Irani quickly commanded, "Cherrim, charge and use Freeze Punch." Cherrim paused the enhancement from his yoga pose and glared fiercely at Garchomp. With graceful dance steps, he quickly approached Garchomp's position, raised his frost-covered right fist, and swung it fiercely. "Gargoyle, use Dragon Claw." Lu Feng, sensing Cherrim's aura, calmly addressed Garchomp, his face expressionless. "K.O." Garchomp roared, suddenly raising his right hand and swung forward with a sharp single toe, unleashing the Dragon Claw skill, blocking Cherrim's freeze punch with his sharp claw. At the same time, Lu Feng's voice rang out again, his indifferent tone reaching Garchomp's ears as he issued a new command. "Gargoyle, take this opportunity to use Dragon Breath." Garchomp's eyes blazed with rage, gathering powerful Dragon Breath energy in his mouth. Under Cherrim's horrified gaze, he unleashed it fiercely. Dragon Breath. Instantly, the energy contained in the Dragon Breath overwhelmed Cherrim, inflicting immense damage and inflicting a paralyzing effect. Cherrim, his face etched with pain, fell backward, his body slamming heavily onto the battlefield, sending up a thick cloud of dust and sand that filled the entire battlefield with smoke. Irani, looking at the haze-shrouded arena, his expression darkened. Garchomp's swift movements left Irani no time to react, and Cherrim, pinned by Garchomp's immense power, was unable to break free. Unable to dodge Garchomp's Dragon Breath, Cherrim could only grit his teeth and take the damage. As time passed, the dust covering the battlefield gradually settled, and the scene on the battlefield slowly emerged into view. Cherrim struggled to his feet, his body trembling, his breath weakening, as if he had suffered immense damage. Seeing this, Irani breathed a sigh of relief and quickly called out to Cherrim, "Cherrim, regenerate." Cherrim nodded with a bitter expression and was about to use his regeneration ability to recover his injuries and lost strength. But before he could do so, Garchomp appeared before him. Before Cherrim's horrified gaze, Garchomp raised his right arm high and unleashed a frenzied attack using ancient martial arts techniques. Faced with Garchomp's powerful attack, Charon was powerless and could only absorb the damage from the frenzied attack. A minute later, Charon collapsed to the ground, battered and bruised, his eyes trembling slightly, but he no longer had the strength to fight. "Damn it," Irani growled, his entire body becoming increasingly impatient, as if under immense pressure. He pondered silently for a moment, as if reaching a decision. He retrieved his Pokéball, reclaiming Charlene, and dispatched his ultimate trump card, El Elito, a mid-level quasi-king. Following El Elito's appearance, Irani erupted with powerful psychic power. Under the gaze of the crowd, Irani's psychic energy converged towards El Elito. Instantly, El Elito's aura began to surge, its momentum growing ever stronger, gradually reaching the limit of a quasi-king. Seeing this, Irani's face flushed as he let out a low growl, and he continued to unleash even more powerful psychic power, aiding El Elito in increasing his own strength. An unknown amount of time passed before El Elito's aura seemed to have reached a new level, emanating a faint aura of energy far beyond what it had just experienced. Ha ha ha, Irani, sensing the change in El Elito's power, burst into unrestrained laughter, his eyes gleaming with sarcasm, appearing brimming with confidence. In his opinion, Awakens had temporarily reached the level of a king, and was certain to defeat Lu Feng's Garchomp and help Treasure Elephant secure a spot in the round of 16. The other national team players at the main venue sensed Awakens' transformation, their expressions suddenly changing. They watched Irani on the field with wary eyes, their expressions filled with deep fear. Countless Daksha spectators, observing the rapidly changing situation, shouted to Lu Feng, "Go Daksha! Master Lu Feng will win, Daksha! Will win!" Lu Feng's lips curled slightly, his expression maintaining its previous state, no trace of panic. Irani stared at Lu Feng in confusion, his face brimming with doubt, but remembering his own Awakens, he quickly called out, "Awakens, close combat, Awakens!" Upon hearing Irani's words, sprinted at breakneck speed, exerting all his strength, abandoning all defense, and charging at Garchomp. Close combat. Lu Feng watched the surging Alligato, then turned to Garchomp and shouted, "Gargoyle, Dragon Dive, Kai!" Garchomp's eyes gleamed fiercely, unleashing a terrifying murderous aura that startled the charging Alligato before swiftly and fiercely slamming into its position. Dragon Dive. Instantly, a heavy crash echoed as Garchomp and Alligato collided, a stalemate lasting for a long moment. Two different auras clashed fiercely, a clash of energy raging. After a long moment, pain crossed Garchomp's face, and he took a few steps back before slowly halting his retreat. Alligato, arms clasped over his chest, fell to his knees, and uttered an agonizing cry. At that moment, both Pokémon appeared to have suffered grievous injuries, their breath utterly weakened. "How is this possible?" Irani muttered to herself, her expression utterly dazed as she stared at the scene before her in disbelief. Lu Feng frowned slightly, and with concern, he asked Garchomp, "Gargoyle, are you alright, Gargoyle?" Garchomp's legs trembled slightly, and he gently shook his head, indicating that he could still fight. Though he had fought for a long time, Garchomp's pride wouldn't allow him to be defeated by the amplified elite, Awakens. Irani, his face pale, stared at Awakens, forcing himself to speak in a deep voice, "Awakens, draining kiss." Awakens, struggling to suppress the pain, struggled to his feet and began to use draining kiss, aiming at Garchomp. Lu Feng took a deep breath and said to Garchomp, "Hold." As Lu Feng finished his words, Garchomp, in the nick of time, used his hold, successfully blocking the damage from the draining kiss. Seizing this opportunity, Lu Feng shouted to Garchomp, "Bite with maximum force." Garchomp glared at Alligato with a ferocious expression. He sprinted swiftly, approaching the creature, opened his massive jaws, brimming with razor-sharp teeth, and bit down on it. Crushing. Severely wounded, Alligato was unable to dodge the attack and could only watch as Garchomp's blow fell. A second later, Alligato screamed in agony as it toppled backward, instantly losing its fighting ability. Irani watched the scene with a pale face, his mental strength drained. Like Alligato, his body collapsed to the ground, strained by the weight. Countless spectators gazed at the scene in astonishment, stunned for a long moment before falling into utter silence. The referee, in a state of embarrassment, consulted the organizing committee, and after some deliberation, they declared Lu Feng the winner. Although some nations hostile to the Great Xia Kingdom were reluctant, they considered that Garchomp was only Lu Feng's first Pokémon and he still had 2 Pokémon to play, making Irani's strength impossible to defeat. Therefore, they declared Lu Feng the winner of the tournament. With a score of 5-4, the Great Xia team successfully defeated the Baoxiang Kingdom and secured a spot in the round of 16. Chapter 249, The British Kingdom Team, Fighting in Hale. May 20th, Monday. At the Xianin Arena main venue, the Great Xia team arrived early in their lounge, quietly awaiting the start of the match. After 4 days of rest and training, the Great Xia team was in high spirits, their form revived. Many players even saw significant improvements in certain Pokémon thanks to this intense competition. Their opponent today was the British Kingdom team, a favorite in this league. Wu Feng, with a serious expression, was in the lounge, discussing the upcoming match strategy with everyone. Our opponent today is the British Kingdom team. You should all know how powerful they are from watching the replays lately. Furthermore, the British Kingdom team possesses a powerful force, Z moves. Their strength should not be underestimated. Wu Feng frowned, sighed, and spoke to the crowd. After hearing Wu Feng's words, everyone fell silent for a moment. The entire lounge hushed in silence. Until Lu Feng sensed the gloom enveloping everyone, unable to bear the oppressive atmosphere any longer, he quickly spoke. Z moves are indeed powerful, but don't forget we have countermeasures. If necessary, we can use Mega Evolution to counter the British Kingdom team, but won't that put the bald eagles on guard? Chuxu asked hesitantly, a look of unwavering worry on her face. Lu Feng couldn't help but scoff at Chuxu's words, waving his hand at the crowd, saying, even if the bald eagles are on guard, there's no need to worry too much. Compared to Z moves, Mega Evolution still has significant advantages. You just need to be careful to interrupt their Z moves and you can have a certain impact on them. Besides, the secret of Mega Evolution will be revealed soon, so using it now is not a big deal. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief at Lu Feng's words, their expressions softening considerably. Because of the need to keep the secret of Mega Evolution hidden, the Great Xia team had been somewhat restrained when facing other nations, unable to fully utilize their abilities. Time slipped quietly by. After a half-hour wait, the match between Great Xia and the British Kingdom finally began. The competition would proceed in the following order: team, individual, and ring matches. On the main venue's electronic screen, 2 different national flags slowly rose, and beneath them appeared photos of 2 contestants with different skin tones, Zhang Dingding versus Johnson. Countless Great Xia spectators, waving their specially crafted small national flags and wearing the uniform Great Xia red, cheered with high spirits. Great Xia will win. Go Zhang Dingding, Great Xia is invincible. Zhang Dingding will win. The British spectators in the stands, witnessing the scene, also roared, trying to drown out the Great Xia crowd's cheers. At this moment, the match hadn't begun, but the battle in the stands had already begun. Facing the British spectators' provocation, the Great Xia spectators fought back, tit for tat, and the entire scene descended into chaos. If the players from both teams hadn't arrived, temporarily calming the frenzy, the situation would have likely continued for quite some time. Zhang Dingding took a deep breath and slowly approached the battleground. He gazed across at Johnson, his eyes flashing with eagerness. Johnson glanced at Zhang Dingding and saw him trembling slightly, thinking he was afraid. Before the match began, British trainers had analyzed the strength of the Great Xia team. And Johnson was well aware of Zhang Dingding's abilities. Therefore, he was determined to win this match, without a trace of anxiety. As the referee announced the start of the match, both teams simultaneously tossed 2 Pokeballs, each releasing 2 Pokémon. Zhang Dingding sent out Glaceon and Diver, both nearing the level of Quasi King. Johnson, on the other hand, sent out Tenabata and Centipede, both nearing the Quasi King level. Johnson observed Zhang Dingding's 2 Pokémon for a moment, his expression becoming incredibly relaxed, a sense of certain victory within his grasp. It wasn't that Zhang Dingding lacked Pokémon of Quasi King caliber. Rather, under Lu Feng's guidance, he wanted to employ Team Snow's tactics to counter Johnson, so he chose Glaceon and Diva. Tanabe, Moon Power, Centipede, Venom Blast. Johnson looked up at Glaceon and Diva and commanded in a resounding voice. Glaceon and Diva, without a moment's delay, sprang into action, unleashing Moon Power and Venom Blast against Glaceon and Diva nearby. Seeing their opponent's attack about to land, Zhang Dingding calmly declared, Glaceon, Diva, dodge first, then use Hail. Glaceon and Diva exchanged a glance and began dodging. After some maneuvering, they managed to avoid most of the attacks, but they still took some damage from the Venom splashes. Under the influence of the venom, Ice Demon Guard and different Sea Lion fell into a state of poisoning, their faces showing a slight expression of pain. They suppressed the effects of the poison and simultaneously unleashed their hail skill at full power. Instantly, the weather above the entire battlefield shifted, and hail began to fall, causing minor damage to Kixie Bluebird and Centipede King. Simultaneously, thanks to their frozen bodies, Ice Demon Guard and different Sea Lion, having lost some of their strength due to the poison, began to slowly recover. Johnson, who had been smiling broadly, suddenly became solemn at the sudden change, his composure gone. He knew that in such weather, if he couldn't defeat his opponent quickly, it would inevitably have a significant impact on him, leading to an unpredictable outcome. Johnson tried to have Kixie Bluebird and Centipede King use the sunny day move together to seize control of the weather, but Zangdingding gave him no chance. Whenever Tanabata and Centipede used Clear Sky, Glaceon and Diva would unleash Blizzard, forcibly interrupting their skill preparations and forcing Johnson to abandon his attempt to regain control of the weather. The two sides engaged in a fierce battle under the hail for over 10 minutes. Various skills and moves blasted across the battlefield, leaving the battlefield in a state of chaos. As time passed, Tanabata and Centipede's injuries grew increasingly severe. Although Glaceon and Diva were no match for them, the hailstorm boosted their power, making them a serious threat. Glaceon and Diva, though also suffering considerable damage, benefited from the hail's effects. Their frozen body ability continuously restored their health, enhancing their endurance. After an unknown amount of time, Tanabata, in the sky, let out a mournful cry, its body swaying, and it plummeted to the ice-covered ground, instantly losing its combat capability. Faced with such freezing weather, the Kixie Bluebird couldn't fully unleash its full power, and despite the relentless hailstorm, it was already a formidable force for having held out for so long. Johnson watched the scene with a grim expression, clenching his fists, his emotions swirling wildly. He fixed his gaze on Zangdingding, as if resolving something. He quickly retracted his Kixie Bluebird and dispatched another Inferno Beast, a Quasi-King level beast. At the same time, he raised his right hand, revealing a specially crafted bracelet inlaid with a red pure crystal object, and began to dance in unison with Inferno Beast. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.